GroundZeroPlus.com. Polynation Broadcast is live. We're broadcasting as we do every weekend from 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Get on over into the greenhouse. We've got a special guest today. We're going to be talking about some useful things. Nothing scary. No fear porn. Only useful things. Things you can do to mitigate the fear. So, the guest in the green room right now, drinking Starlight on tap, probably, is Mike Mont. He's going to be joining us today to talk about some things he's been working on, and also something that I think is very important in regards to food and the preservation of said food, and we're gonna go into all the angles. There's medicinal things involved. There's basics that people probably have forgotten about. But as we do on the Polynation Broadcast, which is live every weekend, 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, GroundZeroPlus.com, we like to play some music, get people warmed up, let the guest relax a little bit, and ease into it. Ease into the greenhouse. One of my favorite people, musicians, and a slight crush, I have to admit, Kelly Lee Owens released a new EP. It's house music. And I don't play house music because it's a greenhouse and get it, the wordplay. It's not just that. There's something very tribal about house music that I just connect with. And maybe, just maybe, Kelly Lee Owens will help you connect with it the same way I do. Here's Ascend, Kelly Lee Owens, and when we come back, Mr. Mike Mont will be with us. We're going to chat. It's going to be awesome. But here's Kelly Lee Owens. And if Kelly Lee Owens is listening, it's a harmless kind of celebrity crush. But if you ever want to come on the show and chat, you're more than welcome, except I'll be really nervous. Kelly Lee Owens, Polynation Broadcast. I think she may have listened to Orbital, just saying.
Outside your mind. It's all outside your mind. Yeah, you give it all away. It's all inside your mind. They say. It's all inside your mind. It's all inside your mind.
guys ever get like a cold or something, and you think your voice sounds better when you have a slight cold? I call it the Stevie Nicks voice.
What's your favorite What's your favorite city? 39. What's your choice? What?
Broadcast. It's groundzeroplus.com. We're live right now. Everything that you're listening to right now is happening as it's happening right now because it's live. And today in the greenhouse, we managed to get him back. It's Mike Mont. One of the Discord brothers, I would say. Mr. Mike, are you there?
Oh, I'm here.
Right on. Everything sounds great.
Good.
What have you been up to, man? How you doing?
All right. Standard, working my life away.
That's not a very convincing I'm all right.
Well, you know how it is in this day and age, So.
You been doom scrolling too much or something?
I think that's an overall problem in the world right now.
Yeah.
There's enough to doom scroll, but, maybe today we can work on some constructive hobbies.
Yeah.
Things that can distract people.
What can we do about it? Like, it seems like there's nothing we can do about it, and that's part of why they call it doom scrolling. It's like there's nothing.
I know.
Oh, fuck. There's nothing we can do about it. But actually, there is something we can do about it. You're into a lot of people call this stuff prepping.
Yeah.
Which kind of has a weird stigma to it, I feel like. Like, there's been a few TV shows about prepping and how, people are preparing for things that are possibly not going to happen. But when you look at the world today, things are happening.
Things are happening. Yeah.
So it's like, even if it doesn't get as bad as what it looks like it's going to get, the things that you can prepare for are going to not go to waste if you don't end up needing them in the SHTF scenario. You know what I'm saying?
No, I know. It's like anything right now, like food costs, right? One of the greatest arguments everybody's got right now is the exponential increase in the cost of just trying to eat. It's like all things in life. Every critter's got to eat. We're all critters. We all got to eat, right?
And the whole SNAP thing too plays into that, right?
Yeah. And a lot of it is, we have a huge amount of food waste in America. Just worldwide too, in general. But a lot of it is we don't preserve our food properly. We survived like up to this point. You go from harvest and you make it through a winter through the preservation of food. And a lot of it we're going to talk about today is like all those skills we lost that we should actually go back to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's almost like we're like, when you look at the world, if you extrapolate forwards, it's kind of like I mean, even if it's not of our own doing, it could be something that happens from the sun, for instance, that sends us all back to the Stone Age.
Yeah.
Meaning,
Yeah.
we're not going to have a freezer. We're not
Yeah.
going to have a fridge. And you know what? We used to live like that, and we used to live very healthily like that.
Yeah.
And
Well, I mean, a lot of it nowadays, what we rely on all these chemicals, right? We try to mitigate like the spoilage of food through a lot of chemicals that have adverse effects on our bodies, right? And that's something that, we didn't do it before. We can go back to doing it that way. We don't have to like basically poison ourselves to a large extent either, and I read labels. I don't know, do you? Like when you're at the store, I mean, some people don't, right?
the reason I don't read labels now is because I don't want people looking at me holding the jar like as far as my arm can hold it away so I can read
Oh, I
it.
know. Yeah. I wear glasses. I get that one, man. So I get it. But I mean, in general, like even like some of the like crazy I've been working on lately. Like I'm working on a water stove, right? Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, you want me to explain it? I mean, I kind of put a simple overview.
Yeah,
in
no, the
Discord.
water stove is a fascinating thing. This is one of
Okay.
the things that you're working on.
Yeah.
There's a couple things I want to ask you about. For the first, before we get into like the food preservation aspect, there's some other cool things that also kind of tie into the, I guess, for lack of a better description, the prepping area.
Yeah.
uh,
Well,
of
sustainability.
self-sufficiency.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, if you have enough, you can create what you need. A surplus is just going to generate, almost like an income.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
So,
a lot of it's like channeling your inner MacGyver. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, well,
So
that's the thing. A lot of
yeah.
your stuff is like, it's DIY.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Anybody can do it, man. It's like anything. It's just a matter of like doing the research now while you can.
Right.
It's like getting back to the sun problem. You put everybody in the Stone Age. Did you own a book? That kind of thing. Did
Right.
you ever look it up? Did you learn the skill in advance?
Yeah.
Did you,
How do you turn the page of a mountain?
Yeah, exactly.
That's why they
right?
carve things in stone, right?
You know it. Actually, there's a weird one on that. Just on a side note, like they were micro etching like stone to preserve knowledge. Like they did this, I believe, about 22 years ago. There was a scientist in Switzerland who was working on it, and you can basically put like entire volumes on an area of about an inch. And it's kind of crazy. It's kind of going back to like microfiche or something like that, but a permanent method, where you've etched all this information onto a very small area. Now, again, you're going to be busting out a microscope to read it, but it's permanently there.
That's
You know,
crazy
so,
because
yeah.
they're talking about that same sort of principle with DNA.
Yeah, yeah.
And
But
so,
it's just,
what if you
yeah.
could encode DNA into a stone?
Well, you never know, man. You probably could. I mean, I don't know. Like, again, that's a whole nother show. Like the
Yeah.
CRISPRs and all the other crazy. So.
So
But I
let's
mean-
talk about the water stove. Because
Okay.
I don't think a lot of people know or have even heard. Like, I didn't really know how. I heard water stove before, but I
Yeah.
don't know how. I didn't know how they worked. And it turns out there's a lot more going on. And it's kind of cool because it reminds me a lot about alchemy, and it kind of reminds me
Yeah.
about this new plasmoid technology that's they're utilizing.
Yeah, Malcolm Bendel's work. Actually, yeah, that's a whole nother show. We should get
Yeah,
into.
we'll
Like-
do that show soon. Okay?
Yeah. I have a huge interest in that, honestly, and it is a game changer in the world. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the same thing. Like we're starting to finally use like
And
old
no
tech.
one's talking about it.
I know. I mean, it's the same thing. We have the first functional, commercial level thorium reactor running in China right now. Why we're not running them here, I don't know. We have enough thorium laying around in tailing piles to power America for the next 175 years while we figure out other methods. But again, it's just the way we run things. It's all about.
I'm more
the
worried
profit.
about Epstein, man. Come on.
Everything's a distraction, man. You know how it is, dude. It's look this way when we should be looking the other way.
Mhm.
It's the same problems in the world. We're pointing the fingers at each other when we should be pointing the fingers at certain individuals.
Yeah, let's all look
know.
at 3i Atlas instead.
I know, right? That was the other one. And no, it's not the mothership. So, for all the jokes aside, right? I mean, it's a rock. I don't know. It's a weird rock, but it's a rock. I mean, until I see evidence otherwise, or they go Project Blue Beam, I'm just going to assume it's a rock, right? But I
Okay.
mean, okay, so like a water stove, and here's a principle and idea that let me explain it. I'll try to like not go super geek on this one. Okay, I am using water as a fuel source. I have to survive with water, right? Everybody does. We all need water. I mean, you can't survive 3 days without it under certain conditions
Right,
and
three
things like
days.
that.
Yep.
So, but here's the deal: I can take a solar panel, a battery, and I'm going to take an outdoor stove, right? And I'm going to not even really modify the stove. I'm going to build a unit, and I'm in the process of building it right now. I got like one part on the way yet. Safety features. If I'm going to build it, do it right. So I'm going to use the sun and a different methodology to cook food. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this solar panel to charge a battery. That battery is going to be the basis of the electricity that I'm going to use for an electrolysis process to break the ionic bonds in the water. So H2O, I'm going to turn into HHO, and then I'm going to recombine it at a burner head. And the byproduct of this is pure water. And I basically indefinitely, as long as I have water and a little bit of salt as an electrolyte, I mean, I could use other things like, but just regular table salt will work just to allow for the electrolysis process to work. Okay. And my byproduct then being pure water, I don't have CO2, I don't have carbon monoxide. It's safe for indoor use. And as long as all the safety features I have, I'm not leaking this gas out, I can use it indoors, right? I can use it in an enclosed space, but I also don't have the cost of a fuel, right? As long as the sun's shining, that's the one condition. And as long as that battery can hold a charge for what I need, I can actually cook my food. Okay.
So, okay, how do you split the water? Like, where's the energy coming from? Like,
Okay.
you're using a solar panel. I get that. So,
The
like,
solar panel going to like an MPPT controller to charge a battery. The batteries, I'm storing that energy now. I've converted sunlight into electricity,
right.
and then I've stored it. That storage then is going back out, and I'm using an anode and cathode and a jar of water that has an electrolyte solution in it. So again, a little bit of salt to allow it to be an electrolyte, so that allows the transfer of the energy into it. Now I'm breaking down the ionic bond, and we're going to get into salt and stuff like that later in the show and things like that, and different types of salt.
Well,
A lot.
I think it's interesting that you've used the word electrolyte a few
Yeah,
times, and people like to add electrolytes to their water, and this is
yeah.
kind of tying into the same principle, I think, as to what you're talking about with ions and
Well,
stuff
I
like
mean,
that.
your body's an electrochemical battery.
Exactly.
I mean, it's kind of the same principle. Okay. So, but what I'm going to do then is I'm going to produce a gas. I'm going to break water down to its base components of hydrogen and oxygen, two hydrogens, one oxygen. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to use like a little bit of I want to up the pressure a little. So I'm going to add like a very small aquarium pump to it into the cylinders. And then I'm going to pump that gas through. And again, safety features, like I have a flash arrestor and a blowback valve, so that, just safety protocols.
Right.
And I'm going to take that and then I'm going to attach it to my stove. Now, instead of burning like butane or propane or something else that's going to produce like a toxic gas after effect, I am only going to be burning and recombining that water again to a pure water state. So I'm going from H2O to HHO back to H2O. All right. So literally your byproduct, and especially in the wintertime, I'm also adding more water into the atmosphere around me. And, because I mean, adding a little humidity to the house, things like that, but when you think about it, it saves the fuel cost. How many times have you ever been grilling and you run out of propane and you're like, oh man, I forgot to get another tank of propane.
Well,
You know what
yeah.
I mean?
Yeah, it usually happens when you're cooking the best steak of your life.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But all I got to do really is just add more water to the cylinder, right?
Okay, so
You know,
where's the okay, if you're taking the water apart and then putting it back together again, but you're taking energy from that,
yeah.
where's that energy coming from?
Well, the energy again is coming from the electricity that is generated from the sun. from a solar panel. Now, again, I could use a wind generator to do it. It's that battery that's the key. I mean, and then again, you get into these like kind of the scammer categories of weirdness where they don't want to follow the laws of physics and entropy and things like that. There's a couple guys out there like the HHO plus solution and things like, yeah, don't buy any of that, dude. Okay. I mean, like you're not there. There is no over unity on this. Okay. So I need energy to break the bond, and recombining it is a thermal reaction. Okay.
Don't you have to add something to recombine it?
No. I heat. Yeah, because I'm burning it. I'm producing oxygen and I'm producing the fuel, which is hydrogen, when I break the bonds. So when I recombine it, the other element that you need is heat. So again, I can piezoelectric, starter, boop, boop, just like a lighter, or I can just start it up with a match, it doesn't really matter. But it's the heat, and it's going to recombine it back into water when it burns, because it's an oxidation process when you're burning, right? Okay. So
for a stove like this, you wouldn't need wood.
No, you don't need anything. It's the key to it all is I need a battery that I can sustain and keep charged. And I can do that with sun. Now, if I'm using, let's say even a smaller, like I'm using a gel cell battery, like AGM batteries, that way I can turn it any direction. It doesn't matter. I can make it a portable unit, that kind of thing.
Are you limited with what kind of batteries you can use here?
Well, no, not at all. Not at all. I mean, I can do a direct feed off of a solar panel as long as the sun's shining and do this, but you want it to be a stable system. So I want to store the energy.
Right. So it's like on demand, right?
Yeah, so the sun goes down, doesn't matter, man. I spend all day charging that battery, right? I can still run this at night.
It's basically like you could flip a switch and run a stove.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, a lot of
with
people,
no wood, you don't have to start a fire. You don't have to. There's no like off gassing. I mean, to me, this sounds like how come I've never. Well, I literally learned about this today.
Okay.
To me, this seems to be like something that every home should already have.
Well, okay, so here's the deal. Like in other places in the world, it's used. I mean, again, I also follow, there's guys that use like a biogas systems where, let's be honest, they're taking, matter, poop, also, plant matter, and they're doing biodigesters to produce some methane. Right, and then they're pumping those across your little village here to run stoves, in the same principle. Okay, and that's all well and good. Don't get me wrong; it is actually viable. It's awesome, totally cool. Love that stuff. Biodigesters are great. I mean, we kind of waste. Literally, we complain about methane in the atmosphere when we could be burning it off as a fuel. Methane being the main component of natural gas, anyways. Okay,
exactly.
But with a water stove, I don't have any of the byproducts of carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide. And again, carbon dioxide is plant food, that whole argument, okay, and all that, but carbon monoxide being like the ill effect one, I mean, it's going to bond readily in your system when you breathe it, and that's where people die, things like that. But with the principle of the water stove, I don't have anything except for pure water coming off of this. So it is safe for indoor use. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but this is the kind of principle. It's something that literally with direction, anybody can do this, And I'm also going to put a regulation on it as far as like, I can vary the amount of amperage and voltage, using rheostats coming off the battery. So I can increase or decrease the rate I'm producing the fuel.
I wonder, because the concept of running a stove off of a battery, have you ever heard of the Baghdad batteries?
Absolutely, 100%. I've built one.
I wonder if they were using that to cook food.
You never know, man. Honestly, and a lot of it, the principle they do think, I mean, but this gets back to Antiquitech, which is a whole other story and a whole other show we're going to do, but it's the same thing. I've built Baghdad batteries before. Anybody can build them. I mean, literally, it's an anode and a cathode of a different metal. You can use copper, lead. You can use, a variety of different metals that'll do it. It's a transference of electricity. Let's just call it that.
Yeah. What's interesting is that they use
through an acid.
I was just going to say what's kind of interesting and ties into what we're going to talk about later with the preservation of food is that it uses an acid.
Yeah. Which you can make your own. You can make your own.
Exactly.
Right.
Like
I
maybe
mean,
like vinegar or something like
yeah,
that?
you
Yeah.
know it. That's another thing. Everybody can make their own vinegar. We're going to get into that,
Yeah.
But I mean, it's the same thing. I could just use lemon juice. Do the yeah, okay? So like pH, right? Potentials of hydrogen. Like
Yeah.
okay, so and it's about acidity, right? And acidity is going to allow for the transfer of energy. Let's pull as a medium, right? Let's just call it that. All right. So like your bad dye battery is two dissimilar metals that is allowing for a transfer of say electrons
Right.
across. Okay. But I mean like this we have modern, stuff. Like again, using a gel cell AGM battery, I can invert it, I can turn it around, I can do it. It's all stable, it doesn't leak anything. I don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. And that's why I'm using a small like 35 amp hour AGM on this. And again, when I get this finished, I'm still waiting on one part, the flash arrestor blowback valve. I'll probably post it, and I'll probably even maybe I'm not big on making videos, but maybe I'll make a video of me assembling it, and
Can
then
you just
using it and stuff like that.
can you just explain the? I'm assuming the blowback valve is some kind of a safety mechanism.
It is.
What would
Okay,
that
so
be like a safety mechanism for, though?
so I'm using a gas that's highly unstable, but I'm also doing it on demand. I'm not storing it. Now, I could in electrolysis have two separate containers where I can when the electrolysis takes place, I'm splitting the bonds, the ionic bond between the hydrogen and the oxygen. I could actually separate it and have hydrogen in one cylinder and then oxygen in another, and then I could recombine it. When I'm using an HHO system, what I'm doing is I'm just producing that gas in its entirety. Like, so I have free hydrogen and free oxygen together, which is unstable. But in the system that I'm using, if I put in like secondaries, like I have a secondary system where it's going to go back through water as another safety feature,
Hmm.
but you don't want a flashback. So like in metalsmithing and a variety of things using gases and torches and things, flash arresters basically I have a one-way pressure valve. So if it overpressures, like just like anything, when you have like a pop or an explosion or anything like that, that it's going to force backwards and close that valve. And then I have a series of screens behind it that don't allow that explosion to continue down the line. Right. So it's just a safety feature,
Right.
right? I use them all the time, like on like gas forges, torches, things like that, and it's just, we, again, live in the modern day. We have the ability to have these things. It's always a good thing to have, safety first, yada, yada, So the idea of behind this, though, is that arrestor goes between the stove itself, the tube that's feeding it, and then an arrestor, and then back to the system where it's generating. So even if anything were to happen, like a small leak, anything like that, it's going to stop that flame from going backwards, back into the cylinder, back into the unstable gas
Okay.
that I'm generating there. The idea and the principle too is that I'm generating an unstable gas. That means it with a thermal reaction, it has the ability to just flash all at once. So, like anything with your stove, I have a low setting, a high setting, all that, right? You're governing the amount of gas that's coming off onto the stove.
Hmm.
Okay, so the same principle is that I'm governing the amount of gas I'm generating by the amount of electricity I'm putting in, and I'm also regulating the pressure with adding extra pressure to it to force it forward, with adding just a little air to it, to increase the pressure in the cylinder, So but the idea in this is that I don't have a fuel cost, right?
Right.
It's just water. That's all I'm using.
Okay.
Water and sunlight.
So
You know.
I have one more question about this stove, and
Mhm.
that is, what is the amount of control you have over the temperature of the stove?
Okay,
Or
so
like say you were cooking something, you need a specific
here,
temperature.
here's the thing. Like anything in chemical reactions, you generally have an exothermic amount that's getting up there. Now, I can turn this into a pinpoint if I wanted to, put a burner head on it and use it for metalsmithing, and I will have a 4,000 degree flame in Fahrenheit, right? So we're talking hot,
Okay.
and this is the whole point. And one of the better principles of it is because it makes it highly efficient, okay, for cooking. I can have a smaller flame that's really hot. You know what I mean? So I'm using fuel that where it's kind of like
So
cooking
I
a
guess I guess a way to look at it would be like you're capable of having a smaller efficient flame, but you could, if you
yeah,
wanted to, heat a pizza oven with it,
you absolutely could,
and it would
again.
be like 700 degrees in there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
Yeah.
all about thermal regulation at that point.
Right.
So, okay, same thing. Like, let's say I want to build one of these, and let's say I want to do some water bath canning, for example, right? I
Okay.
can, let's say the weather's nice, I can use it outside. Okay. I am, instead of running electricity that I'm paying for, again, your base cost and all this is just the parts and building, right?
Right.
But I can save money on my electric bill. Instead of running an electric stove, I can save money on my gas bill. I'm producing my own fuel.
How much
You know,
maintenance is involved in something like this system?
Not a lot. Occasionally cleaning out the cylinder and redoing electrolyte solution. Now,
Okay.
mind you, the electrolyte in there, I'm using a salt.
So what's
That's
easier, cleaning an oven or doing maintenance on this?
maintenance. Maintenance on this is literally taking the cylinder, occasionally dumping it out, cleaning it out, and putting it back on.
Okay.
There's really nothing to it. Your electrolyte really doesn't go away as the salt will concentrate in a solution. It's kind of like when you're, making sea salt, right, or anything like that. You're just literally taking out the water. You
But
know,
I
you're,
mean, do you think it's a coincidence that most of the water on planet Earth has salt in it?
yeah. Well, you'd be surprised. When you get into salts, salts like a whole thing. Salts. How to explain it like without going super geek. Okay, so salts are there's two types of salts, and the most common one are chlorides, right?
Hmm.
And there's a cation and an anion, right? Okay, so your cation, and when you get into it, like the nomenclature of it, like let's say just table salt, sodium chloride, NaCl, right? And your cation is the metal bound to a chloride, right? So you're going to have, like, the first thing is the metal, which would be sodium. Then the second part is going to be like your chloride that it's bound to. Okay, like a
This is all
chlorine
gonna
atom,
tie in
right?
later too.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
There's the acetate versions like potassium nitrate and things like that, which is also a salt,
Right.
but that's an acetate version that's different. That's like KNO3 is potassium nitrate. Okay, so, but really, like your standard table salt, and there are a variety of different salts, is sodium chloride, right? So that in itself, like, we need that to live too. It's the same thing where salary comes from, was paying Roman soldiers in salt.
Right.
You know, like, you can't survive without salt either. Like, we need it because we are an electrochemical battery, like the way our body runs. But it's found everywhere. Like, it's a common neutralized reaction that takes place between acids and bases. And a lot, again, back to metals, 70% of, like, all the elements are metals, right? And they always, like anything in nature, it finds a balance, and so this is where metals are bound, into a stable state,
Right.
right? And again, there's why your oceans, are the majority of it, are that way. It's because that those metals found a place, like, to balance themselves out in any kind of reaction. So that's why we have that. But again, like sea salts also, like magnesium chloride, there's all these other metals involved, potassium chlorides, all that too.
Um, So a little bit back to what we were talking about before. I'm assuming Sonny in the greenhouse asked a pretty good question.
Oh, calcium
With the
buildup.
calcium buildup in the water stove. Is there
Yeah.
anything like that you got to worry about?
Again, over time, if you see any kind of, like, precipitation taking place or any of that, you can just change the water in it. You can
Right.
clean it out. Really, it's not a problem. You're not having any residues too. Like, you're not on burner heads. It's not like you're leaving a carbon behind or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah, you get spillage and, things burn and stuff like that. That's like cleaning your stove. But no, really, you don't have that problem. But again, the benefits outweigh the problems
Yeah.
on this.
Totally. Seems like it.
Seriously, like fuel costs. Again, this is like I'm back to constructive hobbies.
Hmm.
This is building something that's saving you money. This is building something that's safe, like, as far as safety goes. And you're not having the problem of, like, indoor use. Let's say the power goes out. right?
Yeah, and
How many guys?
you're using like
Yeah,
physics and
yeah,
like it,
yeah.
I mean like it, I can imagine being a kid and learning about this and
Hmm.
just being like blown away.
Mm.
But I never learned anything like this in school.
Well, there's a lot of it, man. I mean, it's stuff like this that there's a lot of people that dabble in different things, right? And everybody, we all learn from everybody else's experimentations and dabbling, right?
I mean, it's important to be able to boil water, though.
Yeah,
Like, I
absolutely,
mean, even if
100%.
we're not in a 100% crisis situation, there's been a lot of times where people have been ordered to boil their water before drinking it.
Yeah, well, you always, I mean, look, we rely on an indebted system with like chlorides a lot of times and things like that that we're adding to waters to make them safe from microbes, right? Again, same thing, like we've moved over to a lot of plastics and stuff
Hmm.
and away from like copper, but your old copper pipes used to be antimicrobial by nature, right? And so nowadays, like, keep this in mind. Like, I have no idea what the world is going to become from day to day, right? And again, this is part of the problem with people and doom scrolling and all that. A lot of people just build up this as anxiety. We have a weird zeitgeist problem in the world. We have overthrowing of governments by, like all kinds of stuff going on, right?
Right.
But again, you never know. I mean, again, I could also get a winter storm and my power went out. And a
Well,
lot of people,
most
they
of the time, it's something like that happens via Mother Nature
absolutely,
that really wakes people up. I mean, look at
yeah,
the storm in Texas that
yeah,
happened.
yeah,
People died like because they
yeah.
didn't have heat.
Well, a lot of people died too because they started running heaters indoors that were producing carbon monoxide.
And they were also running CPAP machines and stuff
Yeah,
like that too, right?
yeah,
So there was like,
yep.
yeah, and life support machines, and I mean all kinds of crazy stuff happened.
But
No, they didn't prepare for it.
oh, I know. But like with the water stove, you're once you produce the gas is unstable, right? Okay, but remember hydrogen floats, right? Worst case scenario, let's say I have a problem. Okay, I turn off the burner, I notice a leak, I can just open the thing out, as long as I got ventilation, which, I'm producing my own oxygen in it too. So it's not like it's depleting the oxygen in the atmosphere around you.
Right.
And all I got to do is open it up, vent it, boom, problem solved. It's like it's not like the natural gas problem, which is heavier
Oh
and
man.
it tends to linger around. So the safety features, all I gotta do is turn it off, boom, hit the switch.
Right.
It stops the reaction right then and there, because it requires the electricity for the reaction. So they are incredibly safe if used properly.
Hmm.
And the safety feature also is that I'm not producing those toxic gases indoors. So in a worst case scenario, the usage of it indoor is far better than somebody busting out their camp stove and burning white
Well,
gas
this
or
is the thing.
propane.
A lot of those deaths that happened in Texas were due to carbon monoxide
Yeah,
inhalation because they
yeah,
were trying to heat their homes with something they didn't understand.
yep,
The
yep,
exhaust is
yep.
just killing everybody.
You know it. So again, back to the water stove. This is why I'm building one of these. Just well, shits and giggles, of course. Mind you too. I'm like one of those your standard madman. But I've been wanting to build one for a while, and why not? That's the way I looked at it. I had most of the components laying around. Might as well do it. But again, it also has another use. I can use this as a water torch.
And
I
you can
I
also
can use
use
it
it
for
to
metal smithing. I can use it for soldering a pipe if I had to
you can
in a
use it to
pinch.
preserve food.
You got it. I can do all kinds of stuff with it, and that's the whole point. It's constructive hobbies, kind of today's thing.
Like you could make a pressure cooker at the other end of that thing, right?
I could use a pressure cooker on the other end if I wanted to
Right.
easily because now I have the heat source, right? So this is, it goes back to it where a lot of people right now, and again, one of the bigger problems in our society is a lot of people are kind of lost, flailing. They're doom scrolling, they're getting upset about everything.
Exactly.
Well, for every hour you spend, right?
Doom
Like,
scrolling is the
okay,
vampire of hope.
exactly. So for every hour you spend doom scrolling, why don't you just doom scroll for 5 minutes and then spend the next 55 minutes looking up something constructive,
Yeah.
and building something constructive or doing something constructive or talking to others and gaining skills. What I'm suggesting here is a simple concept. Instead of, placating your mind in an attempt to not have this level of anxiety that we have, but then you're compounding it because you're looking due to algorithms and AIs and all everything else. It's just feeding you doom, right?
It's just filling your space. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
spend the 5 minutes on the doom and then spend 55 minutes figuring a way around it.
That's what
You
I like to
know,
do. I
yeah,
like to literally, I sit there and some of these doom things that I see, like I do think about it. I fall into the same trap as most
yeah,
people probably do. And
yeah.
I start thinking like, what if that really happened? What would I do? Like seriously, what would I do if that really happened?
Well, I brought it up last night. It's dopamine and cortisol, right? It's
It's just,
everybody's looking for the dopamine hit to make them feel better as they're looking at stuff that's forcing them to produce cortisol in their mind and freaking them out,
right.
right?
That's why people like
So
to watch football.
yeah, yeah, but I mean, this anxiety, the zeitgeist, like, is just building and building and building and building. And like, I'm talking to people all week long. I'm even talking to like the younger generation and stuff like that, and they're asking me questions, and yeah, I hate to think that I'm blowing their minds by simple concepts, but it seems that way. A lot of people are just kind of stuck. They're mentally stuck in a place. And the idea is like, don't allow yourself to do that. Like, be constructive. Like, if you see what in your mind is a problem, instead of dwelling on the problem, find the solution that you can do.
Exactly. And,
You know,
and one of the benefits of that is if the shit doesn't hit the fan, you've got all this extra stuff that's
yeah.
really fucking good for you.
Well, a lot of it is you're also saving a lot of money. Isn't
And
that
saving money,
Yeah,
exactly.
isn't that one of the number one arguments, right now, is that everything's too expensive? Well, I
Exactly.
personally do not foresee it getting any cheaper anytime soon. And from everything in the cyclic nature of all things, I figure our economy's got about 18 months,
Well, they still
somewhere
haven't
around there.
released a price of a pound of Bill Gates' carbon-based butter.
I know, that's right. Oh my
So,
God.
I mean, it
Not
depends.
not not with a 20-foot pole would I touch that. I don't
Yeah,
know what to say.
I don't
I
think.
mean, there's a lot of like, I know his like fake meat company kind of collapsed because nobody wanted to eat it. But again, it was just a chemical
Do you know how
soup. Like,
much
I
meat that
wouldn't
guy
touch it.
eats? Man, he eats so
I
much
don't.
meat. He eats
I don't.
exotic meat.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it.
He's
I
probably
wouldn't doubt it.
eating those ostriches right now.
Oh my God, the ostriches. Jesus. What the hell is Canada doing, dude? I
I
mean,
don't know.
seriously. Dude, you know what? Not, but like, what, about 40 miles away, I got an ostrich farm down here, you know? And like, it just kills me that what the Canadians are doing with that.
I think they discovered a
I,
cure
yeah.
for H1N1, and
Yeah, that was the principle of it
they had to get
too.
rid of
What
it.
they were doing. Well, again, I don't understand this. God, I hate to say it this way, but what I'm witnessing is authoritarian turning totalitarian.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean, okay, so like in general, right now we're in nihilistic corporate capitalism. Okay, I mean that entire concept is prevalent here. Your representatives, everyone's supposed to represent you is making money on it. They're allowing corporations to do whatever they want, and the nihilistic part is corporations literally do not care about us. They care about the bottom line and the dollar, you know, and then part of the after effect of it is everybody, and again, doom, blah blah blah, we're all going to die, yada yada. Then people are becoming toxic apathy, right? They're starting to not being able to deal with concepts, and they don't want to think about it, and then you become apathetic, and then you don't want to deal, which allows the corporations, God, I sound horrible when I say all this, but it allows the corporations to get away with whatever they're getting away with. I
I
mean,
mean, that term
you know
toxic apathy. You could,
yeah.
I bet you could misdiagnose that for being narcissistic.
Well, you can look at it however you want to, but I mean, it's like a base question. You ask something to the simple question is this: like, somebody looks at something, they get upset, and the question is, why did they get upset?
Right.
You know, and then you get to the point where they show frustration. I can't even look at this. I can't even deal with it. I have too many things going on. Blah 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 blah. Now, instead of dealing with the problem or thinking it through to find solutions for yourself or others, now you're into, I'm just going to shut it out. I'm not going to consider it. I'm not going to think about it because I can't deal. The whole principle is when you shut down and say, I can't deal, now you're into toxic apathy.
Yeah, and that's when the
You know,
solutions pass you by.
exactly. And so that's the point. I mean, there's a lot of things going on where people have to change their view just slightly, at least, in their head. They need to stop viewing everything as like it's the end, it's all doom. And they need to look at it as this is just a problem that can be changed or overwhelmed by my own actions. And I can do small things for myself and others that make the world better for myself and others. And I can do small
It,
things that circumvent the problem or solve the problem.
it's like a test.
Yeah.
You can study for it and do well, or you can just go in blind
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
maybe get by.
Yeah.
Maybe you can look over somebody's shoulder and get their answers.
But again, if people just, spend more time making solutions than worrying about the problem, you know, you can address the problems in your head. And honestly, if you want your dopamine, there it is. It's the satisfaction of I solved a problem,
And you know what's
right?
interesting about solutions is that you actually have to make what's called a solution in order to preserve a lot of different kinds of food.
You got it. You know it.
So, I
There's a
mean,
lot of chemistry involved too.
there's a lot of things involved in doing that, but they're all basic things that people have been doing for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have forgotten about it, not because they wanted to, but almost as if it's trying to be programmed out of us.
Oh, by design, dude.
Right.
Honestly, everybody wants the answer. It's
I
like
mean, if
medicine,
you know how to
right?
preserve a bumper crop of something because
Yeah.
you can't sell it or whatever, if you
Yep.
know how to preserve it, it's basically like buying gold almost.
Well, okay. So in the end, like let's say, like lights out. Let's just go that format.
Yep.
Okay, you're sitting in the dark. You're going. I'm going to freeze to death unless I deal. Right? There's a lot of like science behind this and a lot of things. A lot of people think like, oh, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to do that. But now we're into like the amount of energy it takes. People don't realize how much energy it takes in our
Usually
modern
takes about
society.
3 weeks without electricity when people start to
Well,
realize this.
Well, when your house starts bleeding out, the mass of your house, it takes a lot of energy to get your house warm. Let's say you had your furnace off, right? And you walk into a house in the dead of winter. That furnace is going to be running and running and running for days just to reheat that house, right? So your bigger problem is a lot of people look at it like, again, like the Texas incident, right?
Hmm.
Power went out. Okay. So you're as efficient as everyone thinks things are, they aren't. I mean, and the laws of entropy kick in. So either you're going to figure out a way to produce enough energy to reheat the place, or you're going to kind of bundle up and get into a smaller room and heat that room. It's
Right.
easier to heat the smaller room that's been insulated than it is to heat the whole house, right?
It's easier to
You know,
increase the efficiency of the heating than it is
yeah,
to keep it running
yeah,
necessarily. Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, it's like in the wintertime, our furnaces are sustaining the levels of energy that's already been added in. Okay. To start from zero requires a lot of energy for everything, you know, and it's kind of the same principle here. Like, another thing I'm working on are sand batteries. They're meant as a stopgap. They aren't going to heat your whole house. I mean, they're awesome for like a greenhouse if you want to stabilize the temperature. If
Yeah.
you want to, got a chicken coop, you want to keep the temperature up. It's not going to fully do it, but I can take a solar panel and I can wire it to a heating element and I can put it in a thermal mass. And I'm using sand in a can, right? And then on top of it, I'm using a thermoelectric fan to dissipate the heat. Now, all day long, that solar panel is heating up the sand and it's storing the energy. Now,
Right.
there is commercial levels. There's actually an awesome commercial level one. The thing is massive, can heat a whole house. Okay. But this is another principle. Okay. So it's the same thing like the Amish, how they help heat a chicken coop.
Thermal mass is one of the key principles for
Thermal
earth
mass,
shifts.
right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, like the Amish method, we're going to heat up rocks to a certain point where they're a little warm to handle, and I'm going to take those rocks and I'm going to put them in my chicken coop overnight.
Right.
It's going to stabilize the temperature in there. It's thermal mass,
Yeah.
right? So the same thing with a sand battery. It's not meant to like replace it, but if I run a thermal battery and I have it, let's say that can gets up to 600. Right, degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm using thermoelectrics, which is the differential between hot and cold and two differential metals, and I'm driving a motor that's blowing a fan to help dissipate the heat. right? So all day long that thing's heating up, but then the sun goes down, right? And the solar panel stops working. That's a direct feed from a solar panel to, like, let's just say like your water heater element, your like tungsten base element for a stove or something like that.
Hmm.
And then it's slowly dissipating that heat out. Well, what that does is also help stabilize the temperature. I'm burning less fuel because my thermostat isn't going off all the time,
Oh, you know
right?
what else?
You know what I'm saying?
Isn't
So I'm saving money.
isn't water
Exactly.
itself a
Oh yeah,
really good way to store
yeah.
thermal mass?
At, well, the water bottle, right? Your hot water bottle,
Yeah,
your old school method. I
exactly.
mean, have you ever seen the coal pan where it kind of looks like a cast iron pan, but it's got a lid and a flip open? Old school stuff, dude. You would take this, you'd put hot coals in it, and you'd warm your bed, and then you'd take that thing and you'd put it underneath the bed, and it'd help bleed heat over the night into the
Right.
bed to keep you warm, right?
Wow.
Same thing. Some of the Asian methodologies where they had a thermal mass running and the fire ran underneath the floors and warmed the floors,
Hmm.
right? Same thing. Your Russian, like, or Slavic versions of small fire in a fireplace where everything ran through, and then the brick itself warmed up, and then it was a thermal mass that bleeded out the heat over time. You know,
That's yeah. I mean,
again, it's all energy, man. It's all about what we're talking about is energy. Energy and matter truly are the same things.
sounds
You
like
know,
ancient technology.
it is. It absolutely is. Same thing. Earthship. Back to that. You have south-facing windows that are heating up like a black slate stone or something like that. That
Exactly.
stone over the night is pumping that energy back into the atmosphere around you.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
it also, it kind of, there's a lot of legends about people going underground
yeah,
to,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's because underground there's a lot of thermal mass that,
Well,
there's
yeah.
isn't there a zone in
Well, okay.
in the
So,
crust with it kind of stays the same temperature all the
Well,
time?
okay, so spelunking, right? Okay, so like you get into a cave and you get down after a certain point. Now, if you have an open airflow, which you need and all that, otherwise you get into like buildup of like guano gases and
Of
batshit
course, yeah.
crazy.
Safety
That's where
first,
that comes from.
folks.
Okay, so but it's the same thing. If you dig down in the winter after a certain point, the ground isn't frozen. Right.
Right.
Okay. So again, what it is, that's another like thermal mass. So underground, your temperature stabilizes at like 50 degrees or so. I mean, you got hot spots, you go down deeper, blah, blah, blah. You get closer, in certain regions
Yeah,
to,
there's that crystal cave that's like
yeah.
really hot.
Well, that's super hot too, but also as you're getting closer to like magma and things like that underneath. I mean, look at like the lava tubes in
Yeah,
Hawaii,
it kind of makes
you
sense.
know,
Yeah.
and that's that kind of stuff. But no, underground, stuff tends to self-regulate. It doesn't regulate when the atmosphere being pushed through it is colder, though. And stuff like that. Now, again, it's the bunker concept, right? Bunkers are tombs, in my opinion. They're there as a stopgap. They're not meant to be like, going fallout and living in this bad boy for 100 years,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So, I mean, for all the Zuckerbergs of the world building their like doom and gloom bunkers because they know that they're causing problems, and it's just their escapes, the
And
pure
there's a lot of
feels,
people building them
like.
in New Zealand, man.
Yeah,
Like
well,
what?
New Zealand's one of the places they think would survive most cataclysmic.
I don't
Be
know.
be self-induced, be in whatever. I don't know. It's all a crapshoot, man. I'm not betting on that,
Are
dude.
you
I'm betting.
building a bunker at the
I
top of a
am not.
mountain?
Yeah. Well, that's well, okay, Cheyenne Mountain. I mean, there's a reason they built that bad boy
Yeah,
up
but
there.
they built it under that mountain.
Well, it is, but I mean, there's the same thing. That whole facility is crazy. I mean, there's like the other ones that we know of, like Raven Rock. There's all like all of the other stuff. But again, continuation of government. My government, at least down here, they don't care about us. They care about themselves. Not
Yeah.
like Switzerland. Switzerland has more bunkers than people. They have enough to cover their population plus extras because they care about their populations. My country doesn't care about their populations. It would seem.
It
And
would
that's
seem most of the Western world doesn't care about
I
population.
know. Well, I think most of the world in general doesn't. I mean, that's the powers that be, but that's a whole nother discussion. And that gets into the doom and gloom.
Yeah, it does a little bit.
So, but I mean, we can mitigate some of the problems in our head by actually finding the solution. And again, just small things, little things that we can do.
Gardening is a small thing to me.
Well, gardening is essential. You know, it whether you can do it or not. We brought this up before. Like I can, if you don't have the land, you can do it in flower pots. You can do it different
Yeah, you
ways.
can do
You
it in
know,
5-gallon buckets. You can do it in all kinds of stuff.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, it's the solutions people want to find. You know, and a lot of it, I mean, it may take a small investment, but the payoff in the long term is better. You know, plus it gives you a way of doing something constructive that's going to keep you from getting a little nutty.
And it
You know
does
what I mean?
something. I think it also does something psychological. Like
Yeah,
if you never grew anything before, and all of a sudden you have more tomatoes than you know what to fucking
yeah,
do with, but you don't know how to preserve them, and then
yeah,
you learn how to preserve them,
yeah.
and next year you pull a jar of tomato sauce or preserved tomatoes off your pantry and use them to make a spaghetti sauce, and you realize these taste better now than when I harvested them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But that's, okay, so the same thing. There's crops that are worth growing and some that aren't. Some take large amounts of space. Some things are not
Yeah, and you're geographically limited
acclimatized.
too,
Yeah,
right? So,
absolutely. I'm not exactly growing bananas in my backyard up
mhm.
here. But I mean, the same note, like, I don't know, there's the Arctopia guy, I believe in Canada, where he's growing fruit trees in the Canadian
Oh yeah, no, he's got a
zone.
great
Yeah.
freaking greenhouse. Like
Yeah,
it's like a
that's
giant Earth ship almost.
yeah, and he's using thermal mass too,
Yep.
and that it's just genius. But he's also, and again, back to the Earth being warm, is that he's using like that underground system, and he's pumping the air through and then pumping back in. That's stable temperature.
Yep.
So he's heating it with the Earth. He's using the Earth's heat to help heat that.
He
You know,
also, we should point out, he also lives in the prairies, which is like
yeah,
you have unlimited access to wind and sun.
yeah, yeah. Well, again, when the sun's not shining, the wind may be blowing. If neither of them are blowing, that's why you build your energy source and store it, you know, and so that you can use it when it's not. I mean, our biggest problem in America, especially, is that we do not store energy. All our energy is on demand, right?
Right.
And there's the talk of batteries and this, and battery technology is getting better. There's different ones. It was like the Samsung silver batteries, fast charge.
I think just in
Yeah,
general, like many people just take energy for granted because they don't know a life
absolutely,
without it.
absolutely, absolutely. But that's part of the problem with it. Like our ancestors, like we relied mostly on exothermic reaction with wood,
Hmm.
coal, things like that. We did not rely on anything. We didn't have electricity. We didn't have a lot of other things. I mean, we got into the generation of energy with water, like your water wheel and things like that.
Hmm.
But that was just, taking gravity and its potential and then turning kinetic energy into more kinetic energy and not into actual storable energy.
This is really cool
So,
because this ties in perfectly to what we're really going to start talking about is we're talking about the conservation or preservation of energy.
yeah,
Um, Caloric energy is
yeah,
really
calories.
important,
Yep,
and
yep,
not just caloric energy, but like sometimes microbacterial.
yeah,
Sometimes like there's all kinds of energies you can store
yeah.
in food when you preserve it if you know what you're doing, and you use the basically some of the oldest knowledge in the world
Mm,
when it comes to basic things like we already talked about salt. We already
yep,
talked about acids, in the use of batteries. These electrolytes and acids can be used in the preservation of food, not just to preserve it, but to make it better.
yeah. Oh, absolutely, 100%. I mean, honestly, there is like, God, I don't even know if we're going to be able to fit it all in the show, but we're going to try.
We can
But
do a
there's so
part
many
B.
things. I mean, there's a lot of. Okay, so let's say we do a lot of gardening. Okay, and let's say we're out here. I got a bumper crop of tomatoes. I'm going to process them. I'm going to do all that, and now I'm into, man, what do I do with this? Well, water bath canning,
Mm.
literally, has been around like forever. you know. And this is the whole point. It's one of the, I mean, more in the modern day we have like your ball jar, you know, like all the different ones, and we've come up with systems and formats of sealing it with a lid. You know, previous to that we were sealing it with like wax, for example,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know, but we're back into, we're going to kill off any microbes, we're going to kill off any of the biologicals that would cause spoilage. We're even going to, you know, with heat we're going to change some of the enzyme reactions that are in there that would cause spoilage early, you know. And we're gonna can this puppy, and we're gonna put it in a cool, dry place, and we're gonna store it. Now, again, like one of the greatest survival foods ever was pemmican, right?
Pemmican, yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna take meat, I'm gonna dry it, I'm gonna cure it, and I'm gonna smoke it, and I'm gonna grind the puppy up. I'm gonna take out as much water content as I can. I'm gonna render fat, which is high caloric value. I'm going to make it stable after rendering it. You know, I'm going to take out all the parts that might go bad, and then I'm going to add even other things like fruits, berries, and stuff that have been dried.
Yep.
I'm going to get my nutrition a full source in something that they found caches of after 100 years, and it's still edible.
And it's still edible. I know.
Yep.
It's insane, man.
I know, right?
You brought up an interesting point. A lot of people don't realize that what smoking does to help
Yeah.
with the preservation of food. I'm
Yep.
wondering if you could get into that a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so your country ham, right? You know the difference in hams and all that, and,
Yep.
and you see the country ham, right? So your country ham's a salt cure process that's using sugar and salt, right? And what that do is you're dehydrating, and you're also killing microbes on the outside, right? You know,
Because
it's like,
microbes need water, folks.
yes,
Yes.
that's the thing about it. And there's the thing about sugar and salt, that it dehydrates it and doesn't allow the microbes to grow. Okay, so we're going to take that and that country ham. After you've done that process, then you're going to smoke it, right? And we're going to smoke it not at a temperature that's cooking it, but we're creating a layer on the outside of that ham.
It does
Now,
taste
and
good, but the
yeah.
original reason is not for the flavor. I'm hoping you're going to get into that.
Well, that's it. It's, you can, you know, I same thing. I got a smoker. Hell, in college we built a smoker out of a couple drums and welded the two together.
Right on.
You know, I mean, not even screwing around. Just like, hey, let's make a smoker on a weekend, dude. Okay, I'll bust out the welder. You know, but that's the thing about it. Like, anybody can really do this. You know, and it's another thing. It takes time. And it takes regulation of temperature in the atmosphere, and it also is relative to what you're using for the wood stock. Like, if you're going to use apple or cherry, you're going to impart flavors and stuff like that.
Right.
But the true principle is that I'm producing a chemical layer on the outside of that material. I'm also dehydrating it at the same time, but I'm also producing another bound layer to that that's going to preserve it over time.
Like a skin, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They often refer to it, ironically, they refer to that as the bark.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
Well, it's like a human being, or you know, like anything. Our biggest organs are skin. It's also our shields. You know, shields up. You know, that kind of thing.
They're using wood to create a bark. Yeah.
Same thing with the tree. The bark is shields up for the tree. You know, when a tree gets scarred, that's where an infection takes place. You know,
right.
So it's the same thing with your skin. You get a scratch, and again, bad things happen in a pinch. You know, like, you know.
And that could happen to your hand.
Infection will kill you. Like, if lights out, infection is the thing that's going to kill people. You know, and seems like that. You know, if you don't have antibiotics, again, we went through like.
How do you think people figured this out? Like, figuring out that smoking meat was better at preserving it than not smoking it.
Well, a lot of trial and error, I imagine, like all things throughout history. It's like anything. It's just like somebody ate something, it made them sick. Somebody ate something, it didn't make them sick.
It makes me think that if we didn't ever have a forest fire, no one would figure this out. We probably would still be eating raw meat.
You never know. You never know. I mean, honestly, there could have been, and it also could have been the guy that had limited resources, and he figured it out how to make his limited resources extend longer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's that kind of thing. So, but like, smokehouses have been around forever. Like, I mean, literally one of the oldest things, you know, and there's, you know, other methods, like it's about dehydration also when you're smoking.
Right.
You're
which is why
water content out.
That's why it's easier to preserve cooked meat than it is to preserve raw meat.
Well, God, what's the name of the one? Biltong, right? Okay. Biltong is like one of the oldest smoking methods, you know, and that's like a direct cold smoke method, you know, where you're keeping the temperature down and you're keeping a lot of smoke built up. And biltong is like kind of the original methodology to it. Now, in the modern day,
That's kind of like beef jerky, right?
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
You're pretty much you're making a jerky, but you're getting the water content below 10%.
And there's something there's some kind of chemical involved with the coriander, I think, that doesn't happen in the same process they use to make beef jerky.
Well, there is a lot of trace chemicals, depending upon what you're burning, that also have like alkali effects and acidic effects, depending upon what you're burning. Again, there's people who make the mistake of burning toxic crap when they're trying to do it, and they just, it's like the guy in the backyard with a fire, and he's got like green treated formaldehyde lumber, and he's chucking it in there and breathing it. Generally not a good idea, dude.
Scraps
that kind of
from making his deck or whatever.
Exactly, right? So I mean, you gotta. But this is all simple reading up on things.
You'd think that would be common sense to not use pressure-treated lumber when you're smoking your food.
I swear, in this day and age, common sense is not a thing anymore.
I know.
Critical thinking is going downhill as quick as possible, right? It's going downhill as fast as our economy at this point. You know what I'm saying? It was like the pandemic where people were panicking, and then what did they do? You basically took liquid napalm, hand sanitizer, alcohol-based, started pouring it all over their walls, and then their apartment went up in flames. I mean, that's the Darwin Award.
Yeah,
whoops. Like people, your panic should not overwhelm your rationale.
Right.
I mean, I'm just saying, right? So I mean, there's a lot of things you just got to stop for a second. Always think everything through,
yeah, and also one of the things you can do to reduce the level of panic, and I remember this happened during the pandemic, which was grocery stores. They ran out of stuff. And you had to wait in line to get into them because they weren't allowed to have a certain amount of people in a grocery store.
Oh, God, I know.
Because they did the math, like 6 feet divided by how many square feet the store is. Okay, we're only allowed 50 people in here.
So during all that, I'm technically considered essential services. I had to work while everyone was in their fuzzy bunny slippers at home, right? And I got people with masks on and all this other stuff, and like, put on a mask. Yeah, I'm sorry, the micron size isn't cutting it there, buddy. And you're also breathing out the side of that thing that you're wearing.
Half the people wear them below their nose.
I mean, I played the game, but by God, man, I just don't even know what to say with the rationale of people and their levels of panic. But again, what I'm witnessing right now is just a different incarnation of that. You know what I'm saying? And people need to check panic, check the anxiety, check everything else.
Yeah, because there's things you can do.
Yeah. That's the point.
If you grow like 20 squash, like, okay, clearly one person isn't going to eat 20 squash, right? When they're all going to be ripe at the same time. That's not ideal for one person or even a family of four. But you can preserve it.
Exactly, but cold storage, like I just, my little bumper crop of butternuts out here, I have down in a room that's well ventilated, cool.
Good choice, by the way.
No light, I mean, and the acorns didn't do as well this year, but we also get some of the insects that tend to attack that. I get vine borers. There's ways around vine borers.
We used to call it everything butternut squash.
Yeah. It's like one of my more favorites. I like them. I also like spaghetti squash. I might do spaghetti next year. I haven't decided. But, the thing is like I have it in cold storage right now, dude. Everybody had a root cellar back in the day, right?
Yeah, because we didn't have a fridge.
Well, I have, air in, air out in ventilation. I have quality ventilation. I have everything being stored properly out of the light. I have an extensive pantry. Let's call it that. Well, there's your guys that call like you're my food cache, my bunker supply. I don't look at it like that, man. Right. I look at it as I got an extensive pantry. And again, while people are panicking because they literally have 3 days of food on average in their house, I have months worth, and I know how to cook. You know what I'm saying?
Knowing how to cook is another show we should probably do.
Absolutely.
With the basics of like knowing.
There's
a lot of people that think cooking is like. It's just why would you learn how to cook when you can just freaking pick up your phone and press a button and all of a sudden a Big Mac shows up?
Well, I say it all the time. Modern convenience becomes an inconvenience when it goes away.
Well, I think even a lot of parents now these days, they don't want to deal with cooking because they're looking at their phone. Yeah,
and it's time.
Exactly, and it's taking away from their social media, so they need to order their kids' food so they can get back onto their phone. There's even kids now, I heard, that are abandoning cell phones
Yeah.
because they think their
Well,
parents are assholes for using them all the time.
there's a thing. Everything's a time sink, right? And time's the shortest commodity, man. From the moment we're born till the day we die,
Right?
the inevitabilities of life. How productive are you? What do you do with your time? You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I take time for myself. I play video games. I do beta testing, shit that doesn't pay the bills, but it placates me and makes me happy and, whatever. Okay. But I'm also productive. Like,
Yeah.
I do a lot in the time that I have.
Preserving your production is important.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just.
Well,
I
it
mean,
used to be a
what would be the
necessity.
point of growing a bumper crop of butternut squash if you
Yeah.
didn't know what to do with all of it?
Yeah. That's the thing about it. And so a lot of it, there's sustainable crops. I mean, it's like your beans, right? Okay. Let's say, for example, I'm just going to grow lentils, right? I can grow rows and rows of lentils. I can dry them on the vine drying, right? I can leave things to
Yeah.
sit, and they're going to sit in their pod. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. I produced a very high protein of a very useful bean, right? For its size, it's in cooking. I can use it a gazillion different ways, things like that.
Right.
But I'm going to take that, and a lot of times, I'll vine dry, and then I'm going to freeze it. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm using freezing as a pasteurization process. So no insect eggs or everything. I'm going to kill all that off. Right. So I'm going to minimally freeze it sub-zero for, below freezing for at least 48 hours. Right. Then I'm going to take that. And in fact, I just did it with a bunch of lentils. I'm going to take those lentils then, and I'm going to use, and again, yay for modern stuff, because Mylar. All right, Mylar bags. Aluminized plastic, right? It is like where plastic would bleed, like it doesn't really ever truly seal. But with Mylar and the aluminization layer, it's a permanent seal. There is no exchange of an atmosphere going through it. But then I'm also going to use an oxygen absorber, right? And then I'm also use a desiccant packet so that I can keep the water content, anything that was in there, out. So I'm not going to allow any microbes to grow. I've also taken the steps to, you can do it with heat too in the pasteurization, to kill off any larval forms or eggs or anything like that.
Right.
So, but I'm not going to put it in an environment where it could actually be exposed to anything that or spoilage or getting eaten away by something, right?
Right.
But that alone, right there, I can take those lentils, and I guarantee you, in 30 years, I can open them up and they're still edible.
30 years.
Probably.
And that's not even freeze drying it.
You know it.
I
That's
mean,
the whole point.
that's to me, that is like some of the most valuable information, especially when you consider the amount of attention being given to inflation and food costs.
Yeah.
I mean, they even made a huge deal out of it with the whole SNAP thing going to be canceled on this day. And then there was tons of videos saying, well, I'm going to kill people. I'm just going to take their food. I don't care.
But part of that problem is an indebted societal problem where people were dependent.
That's what I'm saying.
Somebody,
yeah, but I mean, like here's information that we're offering. Where if you go into a grocery store and let's say you had no intention of buying green beans, but they're sitting there and they're like 50 cents a pound or some crazy price, where you'd be stupid not to buy them at least for dinner.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you load up if you knew how to? If you knew how to preserve them. I mean, I'm just using green beans as an example, but a lot of times things go on sale in the grocery store, and I'm speaking to everybody listening here that's struggling with paying grocery bills. Okay, what happens is the food stays so expensive until right before it's about to expire.
Yeah.
And then they drop the price.
The butcher special, man.
Yeah. And that's if you know how to preserve it, though.
Yep.
Then you're laughing all the way to the freezer or the freeze dried, or I mean, we talked about smoking. You can make jerky with proteins. There's so many things you can do to preserve food that we've been doing for thousands of years.
Well, that's
and people
exactly
have just
it.
forgotten about it.
See, a lot of stuff now, everybody's dependent on modern technology. Okay, so we're dependent on freezers and refrigeration, right? Well, everything before had to be shelf stable.
Even
right?
pickles, man. People don't
Oh,
make
dude,
their own
I know.
pickles anymore. They just go to
Well,
the
I do.
store and buy a thing of pickles.
Uh,
I love making
I,
pickles.
I,
There's so
I
many.
make I make crazy ass pickles every year. In fact, I made the challenge pickle this year. On a side note, I made the hot spicy Korean pickle. It is literally one pickle in a jar, and I have yet to find one of my friends that are a sucker enough to take a bite out of
Oh,
this bad
I'll
boy.
do it.
So,
I'll do
so
it.
I'll mail you a jar with a single pickle, man. Because it is just
It's like
crazy hot.
it's like one of those chips
Yeah.
that you're like the
Yeah,
the
right. The
crazy hot
single,
chip, but it's just a
yeah,
pickle.
the
Yeah,
ghost pepper
I
chip.
love it,
Yeah, I
dude. You
know.
should sell those, man.
Well, there's another one. I even wrote a paper on this in
That pickle will
college.
be okay in 50 years.
There was a crazy thing. Okay, so like like your capsaicin, right? Okay, so your plants that were hybridized for the heat, dude. A lot of people don't understand in Mesoamerica like why there's a lot of hot food and just the Mesoamerican concept. Is that also was a deterrent for insects.
Yes, it's a
And
preservative.
so it 100% is because no insect's going to come anywhere near it. It's kind of like using cayenne pepper to deter ants.
Hmm.
You know, it's that kind of thing. So there's a lot of like the chemistry people didn't understand,
And
right? But
squirrels, you can
yeah,
use cayenne
yeah,
pepper to put in your bird seed, folks.
yeah,
And your squirrels and chipmunks, they won't touch
they ain't
it,
gonna touch it. Yeah,
but your birds will
but
be fine.
that's exactly it. I mean, it's the same thing. Like, there's a lot of animals that can eat things. Coyotes are a great example of this. Coyotes actually produce certain enzymes that can break down all the toxic stuff. They can eat stuff that's literally would kill us if we ate it.
Right.
But it's the biology of the animal that over time it found a way around it. Okay. So there's a lot of like things that we can do in different preservation methods to mitigate spoilage. And we can go back to methods that were used to shelf stable food. Now power goes out
Let's get into
again.
that. Yeah, let's get
Okay.
into like what like let's get into like the most simple, basic, like oldest forms of preservation. I guess that would be probably like salt curing, right?
Yeah, salt curing and smoking. And
Right.
that's on meats and stuff like that. A lot of times is like vegetables and things like that. Now your vegetables really, if you want to dehydrate, right? Okay, we use modern dehydrators. I own a couple. It's the things about that is like a vegetable, for example. I need to get it down to 20% water content or less.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that is easily achieved in modern day. Now we used to do sun drying, but that's relative temperature outside and all that. You can do a hot box method,
Well,
which
there's
is
also
also
like you talked about 20% water content.
yeah,
Back in the
yeah,
day, they just knew by looking at it that that's about 20% water content.
yeah. Well, I mean, if I can take a green pepper, cut it up, put it in there, and it's the same thing, the ability to judge by eyes and
Yes.
touch and feel and sight. So I can
It's
take that
called
puppy.
paying attention, I think.
Well, exactly. But if I can take it and pick it up and I can snap it, it's dry.
Yeah.
It's dry. It's dry enough, right? But once you've done that, the idea is that now you have to seal it away from the atmosphere and everything else and all the other like critters out there, the bad, microbes and things like that. Okay. So I'm going to find a way of preserving it from there. So again, like your amphoras of the Greeks to store oil, they were produced a certain way, like your olive oils with this long, thin neck to a large vessel underneath to allow little to no oxygen into it. And then you
Right.
seal it with wax and stuff like that. So you could store the oil for a longer period of time. So this is part of why we had, like your clay pots
That's
were
interesting.
invented
The
and things like that.
the preservation technique led to the shape of the bottle.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
And we still do it in this modern day. Wine bottles are made a
Exactly. Yeah, I
certain
was just
way,
thinking about that.
and things like that. Some of the cooler ones are fun, like the ship bottles, right? Where there's the long, thin top going down to a big bulbous bottom that has a very broad, flat base.
Right.
And it was designed that way because ships, they tend to rock in the waves, and that bottle is less likely to slide around, right? So it was adaptation of a container for the conditions,
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I mean, it's interesting. But again, we do have modern stuff. I mean, we have Mylar, we have vacuum sealers, we have oxygen absorbers, we have
Yep.
desiccant packets. We have the ability to do this stuff, but we also have the ability to do it without power or generating our own power to do it. Which is another thing. Like that battery goes a long way depending on how you use it.
I wanted to ask you, sticking with the salt sort of angle,
Yeah.
if you lived near coastal waters, let's say,
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a way to get salt from the water?
Absolutely. That's where we get the majority, like your sea salts. There's a variety of different salts. I mean,
But
there's,
how easy would that be to do for like just like your average dude?
it's just an evaporation process.
So
Like I
just
can
boil
literally,
it, right?
well, you can boil it. You can do like a lot of places. It's ponds that they flood and then they allow the sun to do the work. Right.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, all around the world we got different salts. I mean, like the Celtic sea salt, right? For example, that comes from like the English
Oh,
areas and
there's
all that.
salt
You
mines
know,
in the Mediterranean that would blow your
yeah.
mind,
I
dude.
mean,
They're
everybody's
like
big on the
12
pink.
miles thick of salt.
Well, but think about this. Like, okay, so at one point, salt was formed in typically an aqueous, solution, and then the solution of the water, it was taken out, right? So your Himalayan sea salt,
Hmm.
right? Now remember, the Himalayas at one point were underwater, right? And geologic action over all the times created these mountains and drove it above, like sea level and drove it higher and higher and up. And it's a mixture of a lot of trace elements like iron, zinc, magnesium, your pink sea salt,
Right.
okay, that are pink Himalayan salt. But then it formed into a mine. So you have a vein of the salt in stone, and that's what they're mining. Right, and now we're turning the damn things into like lamps and shit like that. But I mean, I don't suggest going and licking your lamp, that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Don't take a
Have one.
cheese grater to your lamp.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, in theory you could, but I mean, I don't know, man. It is what it is.
That's
But a lot of
funny.
it is just removing the liquid content.
Hey,
and what's
somebody
behind.
use AI to make a video of somebody using a salt lamp with a cheese grater to garnish their food.
Yeah,
That would be
yeah.
hilarious.
But I mean, we also do a lot of things in modern society, like iodized salt, right? Okay, so iodine is necessary for biologic action.
So is salt, yeah.
Yeah, and so we added the iodine and made iodized salt to increase the amount of iodine in our diets. Like we do modified foods in certain ways. Now, soluble in water is a thing. So I can take that seawater. My suggestion is I would filter that seawater, since all the salts are in an aqueous solution. You're going to want to take out all the particles, take out everything in there that's gross, bad, all that other stuff.
Mhm.
I mean, there's ways of like desalinization.
Like, what
plants,
kind of
which,
yields are
you know,
we talking about here? Like, how much water
Well,
to how much salt?
it depends on the salt and it depends on the water. I mean, look, the Dead Sea is a good example of this. An incredibly high salinity rate
Yes.
in there. Okay, so it's easier to get a large amount of salt out of that than it would be just like salt water in a glass. I mean, if you want to know the difference, it's a simple thing. If I take two glasses and I put a tablespoon of salt in one and 2 tablespoons of salt in the other, and then I let all the water evaporate, I'm still going to have 1 tablespoon in one and 2 tablespoons in the other.
So,
You know what I mean?
would you say it's more viable to mine salt or get it from the ocean?
Mine salt's already been concentrated and uses less energy.
So it's-
Nature did it for you.
It's
You know
more,
what I'm
it's more
saying?
efficient. Yeah, you just have to
But-
know where to get it.
There's a reason where societies are like on coastal regions for multiple reasons besides transportation, previous to the modern day and all that. But like, that's where your salt's coming from on average. Your inland societies usually either traded for the salt or they found mines that had the salt where nature already took care of the business.
And
You know what I mean?
would you agree
So-
that like salt is probably one of the, I mean, you could almost say it was a catalyst in learning how to preserve food?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, okay, so let's go back in time here, like your salt pork, your salted beef, your, a corning process for
Yep.
corned beef, right? Okay. So we're preserving salts we're putting them into a solution. We're putting a product into it. And same thing, it works for vegetables too. Your sauerkraut, for example,
Mhm.
and things like that, which is also,
Kimchi.
yeah, kimchi, which were a mixture of methodologies. We're using a salt as a preservative, but we're also using a biologic action, because now we're into fermentation also.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
This is
Like,
kind of where I
your-
wanted to
your-
get into
your-
as well,
your
is the
deli
fermentation
pickle.
aspect of preservation.
Yeah, your lactose bacteria.
Because now we're getting
Okay.
into alchemy.
Yeah. So, but it's actually more than one methodology, and it's an incorporation of it. And again, it was probably trial and error, a lot of it,
You think
And
so?
so, yeah, I do a little bit.
I tend to
mean,
think that like some of this kind of stuff, like it,
Well, the
it
knowledge
seems
was
like the
passed
trial and error would take way too long to figure out, and then to be able to like nail it down. Okay, this is what happened. seems
Well,
like it would take even longer. And
okay,
it just feels, I feel like we were just told.
whenever it's like science, you're going to do an experiment to see what happens, right? And then you're going to replicate the experiment, and then you're going to prove that this method works, right? Then you're going to transfer that knowledge to others generationally down the line. This is how we did it. So at one point in history, somewhere somebody was doing an experiment, and then it worked out, and then they realized, this is awesome. Let's do this. Let's continue to do this. I'm going to teach my children this.
But how is
Right?
that information able to spread without the internet?
Well, because there's things all over the world that are common, right? I have salt in every culture, right? And I have the ability for someone to learn it. You know, we learn new skills through trade and from it previous to the information age, and we learn new skills of information. I mean, what are we running right now? Arabic numerals, right?
Right.
Well, they didn't invent that in sub-Saharan Africa, right? But knowledge was transferred. And again, we live in one of the greatest times in modern history, at least now, right now, where we have the internet, we have the ability to transfer information at exponential rates.
It seems
where,
like only certain kinds of information are transferred at that scale, though. Like things like
yeah,
language, recording, history, and fucking food preservation, man.
yeah, yeah.
Because they
But I
all
mean,
use the same techniques to do their preservation of foods.
well, again,
And
doing
we
so
talked
for
about fermentation. I mean, you
yeah.
could name a liquor from anywhere in the world. That's basically fermentation.
Well, okay, so like for example, fish sauce, right? Every culture has a fish sauce. It's a fermentation based. Your Worcestershire, by the way, is your English fish sauce,
Hmm.
right? A lot of people don't realize that.
It's based
So
on Roman ketchup.
yeah, well, yeah, there's a lot of things that we have learned that were adopted culturally in different places, but their process was like very similar everywhere. They figured out lactose fermentation. They figured out different ways of preserving a food. They learned and experimented with other culture stuff, took it and adapted it.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
mean, you could even argue that the reason why we have cheese is to preserve milk.
absolutely, 100%, 100%.
That's why we have cheese.
You
I
know,
mean, cheese lasts for
well,
years, right? Milk goes
butter,
bad after a
butter,
couple days.
same thing. Butter, we're saving milk.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things in nature that we have that we figured out the way to keep it. And again, part of this all came to like our seasonal life, right? We have spring where we start, we have summer where it's bountiful, we have fall where it's wrapping up, we have a winter we have to make it through, and
Hmm.
starvation is the number one killer in history.
And
All right.
yeah, I guess like necessity is the mother of
Yeah,
invention, right? So,
absolutely.
um,
Absolutely.
but all of these things require salt, or at least a knowledge of how salt works.
Yeah.
What I want, like, I mean, I already know this, but just for our listeners, what does salt do? Why is it such a universal preservation method? I mean, we know that it draws out moisture, and we know that a lot of microbes need moisture, and
Mhm.
most mold needs moisture, or
Yeah.
else it can't exist. It needs that. Like most life needs water, right? So
Well, it's also depending upon the salts, the chemical reactions that take place.
that's what I wanted to ask you about.
And
Is
a
there's
lot of
chemical reactions happening there, and can you explain some of those,
okay,
especially when
so
it comes to curing meats?
there's organic and inorganic salts, right? And again, it's an ionic bond between typically a metal and a chloride. And again, also, like acetates and stuff like that, But like okay, for example, in sausage making, potassium nitrate and things like that, right? That is an acetate version. And it also is bound to potassium and a nitrogen compound with a heavy oxygen on it. But it is a preservative, it doesn't allow for microbial growth. So again, we complain about nitrates, a
What
lot of
is it
times.
about it that prevents the microbial growth, though?
Well, the microbes do not like the potassium and the nitrogen in it. Okay, so when they're trying to grow, it basically inhibits their cells from duplicating. Okay, so but you have botulism is another problem that doesn't work with oxygen.
I
So
think botulism scares the crap out of a lot of people.
okay, well, toxylum botulinum, toxylum and botulism. People are injecting the shit in their lips. I can't. Again, it drives me insane.
I know, it's the same
one
stuff.
of the most deadly bacterium on the planet. Yet we're going to kill it off, and then we're going to cause a reaction. You're going to get puffy lips. Okay, whatever, dude. Not in a million years would I ever go anywhere near anything like that concept. You know what I'm saying? But it doesn't. It doesn't. It has to be in a oxygenless environment. So there's a lot of ways.
Anaerobic, right?
Yeah. And so there's ways around it. For example, I just did, and a lot of people get paranoid about garlic and its preservation. Okay, so like I just did honey fermented garlic, incredibly good for you, right?
Oh, wow.
And what it is, and I did it, in a fermentation process with a vapor trap and all that. I'm not producing any alcohol in it. I don't have the yeasts or anything like that in there. So there's no alcohol being produced, right? Because again, you can produce alcohols and then turn them into acetic acids, and that kind of thing. Okay.
Right.
So, but the idea is that I increased the acid content and I used a lemon rice vinegar and a certain percentage to it to increase its acidity. The acidity, it prevented botulism from happening.
Right.
So chemically, besides you're using salts, you're also using the balance of alkaline and
you're
acid.
removing oxygen.
And I'm removing the oxygen, but in the process, and I'm allowing beneficial bacteriums to do their work, but I'm also chemically keeping bad bacteriums from forming. Right?
Where do you think beneficial bacteriums come from? Do they just get awakened as soon as the fermentation thing happens?
You make bread, right? You make bread.
Yeah.
You put your bread on the counter and you allow the yeast in the air to get to it. And you can allow that natural yeast in the air. Every breath you take, you're breathing more than you think. You're breathing 70% nitrogen, you're breathing a certain percentage of oxygen, other materials, but you're also breathing all these organic things.
And sometimes plants.
Okay. Yeah, well, but I mean, I'm just saying, it's the same thing where you do like a sourdough starter. You're basically building a culture, right?
I mean,
and you're using that as your
would you
base.
say making bread is a way of preserving wheat?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a way of processing the wheat in a way that's useful. You could be boiling wheat berries all day long and then eat it as a whole grain, the different way.
You can make beer.
You can make beer. If you crack the wheat and you take it, take it out. What was that one? It was like the corn problem at a certain point where we took off the shelling on the corn and we started losing niacin out of it, and then they realized the niacin was important, right? So, I mean, again, over time, we've realized what we can eat and what we can't eat, but sometimes when we process it differently, we learn that it is not as beneficial as it used to be, right? So a lot of times here, though, when we're talking about like the usage of salts, it's a variety of salts. Like our body runs on trace elements too. So like your sea salts, they have magnesium, potassium, other things in our body does use.
I think salt gets a bad rep. Like it's just not. It's kind of like, you can have too much salt leads to high blood pressure and blah 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 blah.
Well, just me generally looking at the internet gives me high blood pressure at this point too. Or looking at the news. I'm less worried about
salt. Have you seen what's on YouTube? Jeez,
I know, right? I mean, go on X for 5 minutes.
That's so funny.
I'm just saying, like, there's a certain point, like, okay, medically, we need salt. We are an electrochemical.
You can't have bacon without salt.
We have saline running through our veins, right? Okay, but I mean, look at a bag of chips, and look at the amount of. Eat this tiny bag of chips that's 200 calories, and it's 1.5 times the amount of your daily intake of sodium, right? It's like it's part of the problem of the processed foods that we have, where we are overbalancing certain things.
It's a totally different way of preserving food. They're looking at like shelf stability and visual.
Well, they're looking at it as flavor, and then when you have a high salt content, all of a sudden you get thirsty, and it also causes that mental reaction of I want to eat more. right?
Right.
I mean, there's let's not necessarily say nefarious, but it's marketing ploys and making them want more and more,
There's a
right?
little bit of playing off of primeval chemical addiction things here
Yeah.
going on too,
Well,
like especially with the sugar thing. Yeah,
sugar, yeah,
exactly.
sugar's a culture that never really had sugar. Or
But
used sugar.
ironically,
Yeah.
sugar is also used as a substitute for salt when it comes to curing things.
Yeah, it's also used.
It
in
can do the
combination
same
with it,
thing,
too.
and when
Yeah.
when ingested
Yeah.
that way, it's not really that bad for you because there's
No,
other things you're ingesting with it that counteract those things.
Well, a lot of times, okay, so we had to transport like meats, for example. Okay, so your salt pork was like one of the iconic examples, or your salt fish, right? So I'm going to dehydrate stuff a little bit, maybe preserve it a little bit, try to get out as much of the extra volume of water and everything in it, and then I'm just going to pack it in salt, right? That salt is going to help with dehydration, but it's also going to inhibit any microbes, and that's where the entire cultures survived on this,
Yeah.
and for a reason, because it was the easy method to preserve a food, your high caloric foods and your high protein foods for a long period of time.
And it's
Now,
also a way to make them way lighter and easier for transport.
yeah, well, okay. So it's the same thing in the desert. Do you haul your firewood? No, you haul charcoal.
Exactly.
Right? Because the charcoal was lighter and it was a highly efficient fuel.
They even had
Right.
mushrooms up in Canada. They had the fire mushroom.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm just saying there's like some of the methodologies that we can go back to are very simple and they produce a lot of, effects. I mean, I'm gonna point out like an Amish thing, right? Okay, so Amish tomato storage. We were talking about this earlier.
They're actually a really good example of like
Oh,
old
oh my
school
God.
knowledge of
I
preservation
know,
of food.
dude, totally, absolutely. But I can take a tomato and I can make a fire and I get wood ash, right? Okay. And I'm gonna take that ash, I'm gonna sift it out until I get the fine ash. I'm gonna put it in a box. I'm gonna take my fresh tomato, I'm gonna put it in that box and I'm gonna cover it with ash. And 6 months later I can pull that same tomato out and it'll be perfectly fine.
Like a ripe tomato, you mean?
Like a ripe tomato. All right. Because the alkalinity of that wood ash, we're talking about lye. L-Y-E.
Yeah,
Okay.
but does that affect the seeds of that tomato at all?
Not really. You can still use the seeds.
Wow.
It shouldn't at all.
Because the
But what it
Amish,
does-
they would use the seeds.
I'm going to wash it off, but I'm creating an alkaline layer that's preserving it. Okay. And then again, that fire with the wood ash, it's the same thing. I can render fat, to get a tallow, right? I can, let's just say beef tallow, right? I got all this extra fat. I'm going to use everything I can. I'm going to process it. I'm going to render it out, take out the bad parts. I'm going to get a pure tallow, right?
Yeah.
Your pure liquid. I'm going to take my meat, things like that. I'm going to put it in a nice, very sterile, clean jar. I'm going to heat it. I'm going to steam it out. I'm going to do all that. I'm going to put the meat in there, and then I'm going to pour that tallow on top in the jar.
And then that's
on
going
top,
to solidify and
And
create
that's
that
gonna solidify
anaerobic environment.
and
Yeah.
create that seal, and I can even put a little water on top of that I change out
And
periodically.
that's how you
right?
avoid botulism.
And I keep it in a cool, dry place, and I can keep that shelf-stable meat for a period of time.
I mean,
But that wood ash and that tallow, though, remember this, is that I can take that wood ash, I can turn it, I can drip water through it, I can produce lye. I can take that same tallow I just made, I can combine them, and I can make soap.
this is what I'm saying. It's
You
like
know.
the byproducts of preserving food are that you can use these things for other things.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, okay, we haven't really talked that much about vinegar. But I didn't know this until a few months ago, actually, and it was probably one of the videos that you posted in the Discord that we do over. I don't know what you would call it. It's just that it's kind of like how would you describe the Discord? To me, it's kind of like an ongoing live backstage of pollination.
Yeah.
Where
yeah.
people just fucking get
Yeah.
together, share stuff. There's rooms everywhere.
Yep.
And I think one of the videos you posted in there was about how easy it was to make vinegar.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You can make it almost out of anything, man.
I know. There's so many different vinegars. I mean, like your aged stuff like balsamics and things like that. That's why they're expensive, because they're aged. I mean, you can make vinegar. Basically, you're making an acid. Okay, you're making an acetic acid.
And
right?
there's the whole freaking apple cider vinegar fad.
Yeah.
And we could get into a bit if you want, but
Well, apple cider is great. I mean, okay, like I can press apples. I can do, and apple presses are easy to make. I can take that juice, I can drink it, I can turn it into booze,
Mm,
right? I can make apple jack out of it. I
exactly.
can, the natural sugars in it. I really don't need to even add that much sugar in it, but I'm processing a sugar into an alcohol. Then from the alcohol, I'm letting it break down, and I'm producing acetic acid, and I'm using a bacterium to produce acetic acid, right?
Hmm.
Whereas when I'm using yeast, which yeast is a funky little animal in itself, it's a whole little category of its own that's producing the ethanol. And then from the ethanol, I'm producing an acetic acid. Because lactobacillus is coming in there, and I'm
Exactly.
producing a
Yeah.
lactic acid. So again, and both of which are floating around, and every breath I take, I'm breathing them both in. You know, and they're just naturally occurring. Now we do concentrate them, and we do generate, like you buy your little yeast packs, and we even breed certain yeast for certain things, and stuff like that, and like modern day yay, But I mean, we just figured this out in nature where things start naturally fermenting.
Doesn't vinegar kill yeast?
Yeah, yeah, this is the whole point.
Right.
It's the same thing where, like, your ethanol being produced at a certain point, you breed yeasts that can tolerate certain levels of the ethanol, right? So your champagne yeast, for example, can tolerate a higher alcohol content than some of the other yeasts.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I mean, again, we're using nature to benefit us, and we're using all the little critters out there, that are naturally occurring to do the work for us.
But
You know?
vinegar seems to do something that salt doesn't, and
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is that it changes something in the food that makes it better for
Mhm.
your, especially when we're talking about things like the gut
Mhm.
biome.
Mhm. Kimchi,
Fermented
man.
foods, kimchi, sauerkraut, all things like that. You need vinegar to make those things.
Well, we are a symbiotic being, right? I mean, like, okay, God, I don't even want to talk
So
about poop, but
what I'm asking is that why do you think it's vinegar that we need? I mean, vinegar is like
well,
it's botched wine, right? Most
yeah,
people think it's
basically, it's botched wine.
yeah.
I mean, we're producing an acid,
It's almost
right? Okay,
healthier. It's healthier for you than drinking red wine,
but
like not botched wine.
oh, I
It's
know.
weird. It's just ironic that like the oh, we tried to make wine, it didn't work. Now we have vinegar, but you can actually use it to increase the medicinal value of your food if you
Well,
do it right and
absolutely.
preserve it with that. Like
I mean, remember, you're a symbiotic organism. You have more bacterium in your gut than you have cells in your body, right? Half your poop coming out. I hate to talk about poop, but yeah, half your poop coming out is bacteria, right?
you can call it shit.
Yeah. Okay. Well, however you want to do it. All right. But I'm just saying, like, there is this symbiotic being that we are, and we have an imbalance in our guts sometimes,
Yeah.
and when you get into things like kimchi, what you've done is you've given an environment of food that beneficial bacterium grow in, and so we're helping our microbiome by eating it. This is why it has all these health benefits. You can preserve a food this way. You can make it tasty. I personally like kimchi, and all the other fermented foods
And
and
a
stuff like
healthy
that.
biome can
And
help you with panic and stuff like that as well, right?
absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, we like, it's like the hidden hunger theory. Okay, so we're deficient in a lot of minerals, but a lot of the aspect to that is overlooked is that we mess up the biome in our stomach
So we
by
don't even
the stuff
absorb
we
the
eat.
minerals we're eating.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
absolutely. And you want to have a healthy, and again, back to it, like we got into modern day, like we're doing poop transplants and weird shit. I mean, literally weird shit. So I mean, but a lot of it is you are what you eat,
You
and if you
haven't
start,
eaten anybody else's shit, man? Come on. It's the best thing
no,
you can
man,
do to your gut
I,
biome is take
I,
pills
I,
of other people's poop.
I tend to avoid any of the shizen out there, man. It's a whole nother category of
Oh my
weird.
god.
So, even the Germans got words for that. So, but I'm just saying, like, there's, yeah, I know, right? But I'm just saying, like, there's things that you can do that you can produce at home. Like, look, it's simple. Like, there's a lot of them that are more open air. There's a lot of them that are
Yeah.
sealed, and like, it's really easy to make a water trap. Right, I have commercial ones and stuff like that. But I'm just keeping anything. What I want to do is control the environment
Right.
and produce it correctly with certain temperature, certain, like whatever I'm putting in it. I want to propagate the good and eliminate the bad.
All right.
And but it's a lot of things, you skim because off, upper layers of when you're making stuff, you got to make things submerged in the bath,
Of course. Yeah.
and stuff like that.
There's a
But
lot of things that people get sort of intimidated away from this kind of
yeah,
knowledge from doing it themselves.
absolutely,
So
absolutely.
what I want to do right now is I want to play a few tunes. We're going to come back at 4:20 when we shout out the greenhouse over here at
Oh wow,
groundzeroplus.com.
wow, we only got an hour left, man.
I
Oh
know
wow,
this
okay,
show has
yeah,
flown by, and
I know.
what I want to do is for the last segment after we shout out the greenhouse groundzeroplus.com, is one of your if you maybe you can even do more than one
Mhm.
beginner recipes of making your own preserved food, whether it's pickled,
Absolutely, absolutely,
fermented, or
absolutely.
maybe we could do one pickled, one fermented,
Well,
and
like
one with
okay,
protein or something like that.
okay, like jams, for example, like is sugar preserving.
Right. So,
Like,
but save this.
yeah,
Save
I
this.
will.
Yeah.
We're gonna
We're,
we're gonna talk about eggs preserving too. Preserving
that would
eggs.
be actually really
Yeah.
cool too. Yeah.
Like
I didn't
water,
even think
the
about
concept of
asking that.
water glassing.
Water glassing. Yeah. I
Yeah,
wanted to ask
yeah.
you about. We could probably do a whole
Okay.
show just on that, man.
I
Jeez.
know.
Dude, thanks for coming by. We're going to
Yeah.
just take a little bit of a break here and refill our drinks, if you know what I'm saying. And here's Asphalt Homeland by Ghost Funk Orchestra on groundzeroplus.com. This is the Polynation broadcast, hanging out with Mike in the greenhouse. Be right back, folks. Don't forget, come on over to Ground Zero Plus, shutting out the greenhouse in 12 minutes. Polynation broadcast. It's a live broadcast, and it's a broadcasting of underground sounds, underground knowledge, everything underground. I guess because the thermal mass keeps us warm and chill at the same time. If you know what I'm saying. I'm not saying. It's all I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? Just saying. Anyways, it's almost that time. What I'm trying to do right now is actually stall for like maybe, I don't know, another 30 seconds or so until the time reaches 4:20 p.m. Eastern, which is when I normally stop the show to shout out the chat room over here at groundzeroplus.com. It's a members only chat room. And for those of you listening out there that maybe are not a member, I know that sounds unfortunate, but it is what it is. And every show that I've done on groundzeroplus.com, I've stopped the show at 4:20 to shout out the chat room because they're members. They're here. They're here every week. It's so much fun hanging out with them. They have great questions, great perspectives. Everybody's really friendly. I mean, I'm sure everybody in here doom scrolls just like everybody else does, but we don't project it into the greenhouse. It's just a chill place to hang out. And I just like to mention everybody, starting right now with Chris, Ground Zero Plus, co-architect and sensei. We got Mitch Durbin. We got Lisa Aniki's in there, GIF queen of the greenhouse. Hey, Mike's in here. That's weird. we got Dads in Focus in here. Alvarez is here. Good to see you, bro. Colt's in here. We got Eric. Eric's in here. We got Druidissy. Druid. I just call you Drew. We got Mad Catter in here. Deborah G. Good to see you again. And Amber from I believe it's the same Amber from Jimmy Jean's chat room. Amber 44-4 is also in here. Good to see everybody, and thanks everybody for listening. We're chilling with Mike Mont, he's just into a lot of the same things I'm into, and so we just get along. And he's been on the show before. We didn't really talk about anything specific other than like metallurgy, which I'm sure a lot of people that listen to that show are still not even close to even trying. But we're talking about something that I think is a little bit more reachable right now with in regards to a skill or like a constructive hobby. Is I think that's what you called it, Mike. Food preservation. It's a lot easier than you think. Even if you can't make your own vinegar or you can't mine your own salt, these are all very, very inexpensive ingredients still, even with all the inflation. Relative to everything else, these kind of ingredients have kind of remained the same, I would say. And so what I wanted to do to close out the show, and keep in mind here, Mike, because I know you probably got a million things you could probably say right now.
Yeah.
We've got less than 40 minutes left. So what I want to do is leave people with things they can actually do. I bet you a lot of people probably already have access to these ingredients that would preserve their food, and not just the benefit of preserving that food without a refrigerator or common comforts that we have, but like it almost adds to the nutritional value or medicinal value of the food.
Well, yep.
So I thought maybe we could do one that was like if somebody wanted to pickle something. I mean, pickling, it's almost like fermentation, but I don't think fermentation happens in all pickling. Am I right there?
Yeah, there's two different versions. There's like your standard deli pickle, which is lactose fermented.
So let's do one of each.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to do for example, I'm going to grow a bunch of cucumbers, and I need to do something with them, right? I can make cucumber salads. I can, do Asian cucumber salads, spice them up, add things to them, or I can make your refrigerator pickle, which is just a simple, like, kind of dousing it in vinegar and chucking it in the fridge. Maybe add some onion, and that's stable for a couple weeks in the fridge. Or I can make a long-term preservation method. Now, again, we were talking earlier a little bit about, like, your different methodologies, like canning. Now, there's two types: water canning, simple, everybody can do it.
Yep.
Pressure canning requires a pressure, cylinder to do. A little more sketchy. You use it though for things like meats and stuff like that to ensure that everything is completely sterile.
Right.
You've killed off any bad stuff. Um, your first method, like in let's just call it water bathing. So we're gonna do like lactose fermentation. That doesn't it. What we're doing with that is we're using salt and vinegar still, but we're letting the lactose bacterium, like just like you'd make sauerkraut, it's really submerging it in a bath and letting it sit for quite a while to let the chemical reactions take place to preserve it. Okay. After the fact, I can take that pickle, I can freeze it. You find them in the stores that way, things like that. And that is a simple room temperature.
What do you mean by quite a while? What is
Okay,
the timeline
so
we're looking at here?
we're looking at maybe a week or two.
Okay.
And it depends on the method. There's a gazillion recipes, and I will say this: a lot of times, look up these recipes and follow the recipe, because then that you're following the safety protocols and stuff
Follow
like that,
the recipe.
Exactly. But what I'm doing is I'm submerging it. Now I have like glass. You can use old school like crocks, right? So let's just say for every gallon that of the size of a crock or something like that. Now you can use other things to do it in. You can use food safe buckets, like plastic buckets that are food grade. Okay, own shitloads of those, man. I use them for storage and stuff like that.
Dude, I used to work in the restaurants, man. I would steal those
I know,
mayonnaise
dude.
buckets every day.
Dude, you know it, right? And so the idea is that I'm submerging it in a bath, and I'm letting all the biology take place, and then and like the old school crocks, generally it was per gallon size, it's 5 pounds of vegetables that
Right.
you're fermenting out. That's the typical traditional proportion, right? Okay. And I'm going to submerge it. A lot of times you take a crock and put a plate, like a ceramic plate on it, and then to keep it all submerged.
That's
right?
helping it not float to the surface
Yeah,
and create
yeah.
some sort of oxidization which you do
And then-
not want in your
Yeah,
pickling or
and then you're just
fermentation.
putting like a cheesecloth over it, right? And that just keeps the critters out, and it keeps all I own cats, and again, Siegfried checked in. He says hi, by the way.
Oh, nice.
So he wants to know how his girlfriend's doing. You know how he is.
Oh yeah,
So, yeah.
they're actually fighting. I think right now. Zoe's not.
I know.
Zoe's not very
Well,
talkative today.
he's sitting in his cat bed moping.
Speak of the
you
devil.
know. Yeah, but I mean, it's just one of those things that, like, you're letting the biology do the action. You're gonna put it downstairs, cold, dark place. Like basements, things like that. You can put it in the closet. It's maintaining certain temperature levels. It's kind of like outdoor drying of stuff. You want it 85 degrees and lower humidity, but what we want here, the humidity isn't really a problem, but we want to keep it like not so it's not really getting too hot or anything like that. So a lot of times, there was a cold cellar or basement, someplace that we were doing that, right? Modern day, they just regulate the temperature, thing like lactose fermentation is like one of the simplest methods. It is a room temperature methodology.
So
right? Okay.
let's spell it out. What is that what is that technique? A lot of I grow mushrooms.
it's a
Sometimes we call it a tech.
Yeah.
So this would be like lactose tech.
Yeah, this is lactose. It's a lactose fermentation, lactose bacillus.
So how do we do it?
Okay.
Like, let's say I know nothing about this, and how do we do it? Like, what if I wanted to do it like
So,
tomorrow?
I'm going to use a salt and vinegar mixture.
Okay.
Now, remember, whenever you're dealing with this, you want an acidity of at least 5% minimum, right? Okay. So you get under that acidity. This is why.
Is there a way to measure that acidity?
Well, yeah, I actually have pH tests. Like you can get an electronic tester. I just use test strips.
Or you could
again.
follow the recipe.
Or you can follow the recipe. But when you're buying vinegar, read the label. You're going to see one that says canning and pickling vinegar, like white vinegars or apple ciders, the two most common. And you're going to see it'll say 5% or higher acidity. Like you can get 7%, 10%. Hell, I got a bottle of 30%, but that's something whole another ball game.
Yeah, that's like rust. That's like rust remover.
Well, actually, instead of spraying glyphosate, let's say I wanted to kill a plant,
Yeah. Okay.
it is a natural alternative to it. But I'm also using it for a methodology for gold extraction. So I, again,
Oh, okay.
whole nother show,
Yep.
you know, and they're pricey, but, and literally, and remember, it is an acid, and at 30%, it can, burn you slightly if you leave it sit on you.
Yeah.
I mean, again, acids are potentials of hydrogen. So a lot of it is, that's what pH stands for. A lot of people don't even understand what pH means. It means potential of hydrogen.
Do you think?
Okay.
Does that have anything to do with like how food is preserved using this technique?
It does. It does, because you're changing. Again, all these methods. The majority of them, you're talking about alkali, which when we get into water glassing, which we're going to do real quick here for eggs, is an alkali process. Whereas in like your pickling stuff is an acid process, right?
Right.
Okay. So the thing is that, and again, lactobacillium can survive in the acids, whereas in other like not good bacteriums can't. And then again, like the great battle that takes place on your skin between bacterium fighting each other and all that, it's the same thing in that bath. If I produce the conditions for the good bacterium, they will propagate. They will also drive out any other bacterium and overwhelm them. Okay, so this is the idea. So the lactose method, real super simple. You're just doing it, no really craziness going on now. And it's kind of, they both cross over. So
So it's kind of like you're just like fighting a proxy war.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. But I'm on the side of lactose.
Yes, exactly.
Right? So, I gotta pick teams.
You're funding the lactose with you.
My argument about societal teams
Yeah.
and things. So okay, I'm gonna pick that team if I have to. All right. But the thing about it, I know, totally, dude. I'm trying to like curb my smart ass.
It's
nature long enough
hilarious.
to do this.
No, it's
Okay.
funny.
So
It's good.
But we're talking like pickling salts too,
Mhm.
which are a little bit different from your standard salts. They are a different combination of salts. A lot of your salts, like again, like your colored salts, like okay, let's use black salt for example from Hawaii. Okay, the reason it's black because it has this sulfur content in it also. Right. So when you're going to do any of this, just stick with like the commercial stuff.
Right.
I mean, so pickling salts are designed for pickling, and they don't have like anti-caking agents and other things in it.
Because you're going to dissolve it in a solution anyway.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
And like you can use iodized salts. I suggest against it in any fermentation because the iodine itself, being an antibiotic property, we're trying to propagate biology instead of quell it.
Right.
So
That
stay
makes
away
sense.
from iodized salts. I mean, there's a lot of things. Same thing. I can. Well, just on a side note.
Well, I mean, this is why they sell pickling salts. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, those aren't
Absolutely.
expensive either. I mean,
Absolutely.
And
But,
they
I
haven't
mean-
really been affected by inflation, I don't think.
Well, not really, and that's the same thing. Like farm stores, right? Again, side note, I can buy a big bottle of iodine at a farm store that's going to last me the rest of my life, using it as a topical antibiotic and other things, and I can get it dirt cheap. Like I just picked up a bottle recently. Same thing, cruising through the farm supply store. Like every time I cruise through, I always buy a pack of canning lids every time. Why? Because canning lids tend to be disposable. They make a non-disposable
Yeah, I heard
version.
that.
But I always buy, it's just something like regular shopping.
I have
so.
reused canning lids when
Yeah.
growing, like cultivating mycelium for mushroom
Yeah.
growing, but it's never really caused any problems. But when it comes to
Yeah.
preserving food for like months or even years,
Yeah,
you would
it's-
probably want to have a fresh lid
Absolutely,
every single
100%.
time.
Yeah, and that's part of it. And again, I always suggest everybody, read up like on any of this. You take the advantage of what we have in modern society right now while we got it.
Okay, I would
watch
say
videos.
like your biggest monetary investment if you're just gonna get into start preserving your foods is the jars.
Yeah,
That's-
but remember the jars are reusable, and so are the bands.
Right.
Okay.
It's just the little flat lid part that you need to replace, and those are really cheap and easy to get.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can get them at Walmart or wherever, man. I mean,
Yeah, and also the same thing. I always suggest buy books.
books are a good thing, yeah.
Books, like I have an extensive library. I mean, there's a reason because lights out, you still got a book, right? And you got the knowledge preserved that way.
Right.
And again, I don't trust
As long as it's not too dark to read.
Well, the editing of the internet, the editing of the internet. I mean, it's just like that's a whole another discussion altogether. But buy books. I mean, honestly, you can get used books for cheap. Yeah, on subject matters. There's whole books on everything. I mean, I'm staring at a couple I pulled. I got pickling recipes for Asian stuff. I got all kinds of
But basically, this
you can
technique
can
only.
book. Yeah,
I mean, this technique that you're talking about now, it's basically like it's a very easy recipe to remember because there's
yeah,
really no like right or wrong measurement.
yeah.
And there's ways to measure it that are cheap. You need
Well,
water, you need
the majority
vinegar,
of your
and you need salt.
yeah, and the majority of your jars have gradations on the side. I can use a
Exactly.
spare jar sitting around to measure stuff if I need
Mm-hmm.
to. I mean, and that's the thing about it. But then after, okay, and remember, there's one thing about cucumbers. Like, you're always going to trim off slightly the blossom end
Right.
because otherwise, if you don't, there's an enzyme that will react in it,
It'll make it
and then,
bitter.
well, it'll make it bitter, but it'll also make a softer pickle.
Oh
You know what I'm saying?
wow! So it
And
changes the texture.
it changes the texture. The enzyme
Wow.
does. Okay, so what you're also going to want to do, and remember this, like everything is all about sanitation too. You're going to want to have everything, like you pre-boil the jars and lids and everything. You're
Yeah.
going to make sure everything's sterile. You're going to make up your solution. You're going to heat it up. Turn it to a sterile state. I'm gonna pack my pickles. I'm gonna put the solution in. I'm gonna put the lid down. Don't crank it all the way, because you don't want the poppy exploding on you. I'm
Right.
gonna Now a lot of times in just straight water bath. And again, I'm sorry if I'm talking fast because I'm trying to pack in as much here. But they say an inch over. I always go 2 inches over. Okay, you know
Right.
why? Just because I am creating that environment that is sterile, and I want to ensure that it's sterile. Okay, and water bath canning. Literally, go to your Salvation Army garage sale. You can find these things everywhere.
Yeah, and
You
I
know,
mean, it sounds like more
but
work than it actually sounds like. Like
I'm.
what we're
I
talking
know.
about
I
here is
know.
literally like you just okay. Here's how to do it easily. Okay, because a lot of people are
Yeah.
like water bathing. Oh my god, it's such a fucking hassle. Okay, you put an empty vessel in your
Mhm.
oven
Yeah.
that holds water and possibly some jars that you want to put in it, okay?
Mhm.
And then you put that in there in the oven first, okay? And then you pour the water in that vessel. You don't
Well,
you don't
yeah.
fill up the thing first and carry it to the oven, okay?
Yeah.
Like
Well, see, you can do it outdoors too. I mean, there's a lot of, everybody has different methods. I follow a lot of the European stuff where they're water bath canning meat, right?
right.
It's a long duration, like where you're looking at 8 hours as opposed to like half hour, 40 minutes, something
In
like
a
that,
pressure
depending.
cooker, exactly.
Yeah, well, pressure cooker even quicker, right?
Yeah.
And again, follow directions. Like in elevation, you have to change your methodology. But basically they worked out the science already. Just follow the
But I
directions.
mean,
You get
yeah,
where I'm at.
at the end of the
But
day though, this method is just basically dump your solution in a jar with whatever you're pickling
yeah,
and
and
it's
then
going to
but
lactose ferment.
well, it is and it isn't. So you're pickling in your standard pickle, besides the lactose part, which you can go back and then recan them and everything if you want to. That's the kind of like basically your room temperature
Okay.
methodology. When you get into like pickling like this, the process is taking place kind of after the fact. Because I have the acids and salts in there, right, and the spices and everything else like that.
So it's
There's whole
kind of like
charts. Yeah.
aging.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
So, but then what I'm doing is I'm going to water bath it, and that's going to ensure that everything came to temp, everything, all the bad stuff's
Hmm.
gone, dead. And then I'm going to pull it, and I'm going to seal the lid. Now, a lot of guys, they take the ring off. I usually just loosen the ring, and then I can tell whether it's sat and sealed. It doesn't mean it's bad if it didn't sat and seal. It means if it didn't seal, then just put it in the fridge, eat it right away, kind of thing.
Right.
Okay. But I mean, I've had pickles literally I've pulled a year later, perfectly good. you know
Really?
yeah, absolutely, 100%. And then the same thing when it's like a really simple thing. Like I do a lot of kosher, I do a lot of garden, like variety wacky, spices in it. I like garlic pickles, like all kinds of stuff. It just
Right.
depends on what you want to make. But the high acidity is really the key, to this. And again, yeah, like somebody brought up bread and butter pickles. I make those too. Those great. You're adding onions. You're adding other things to it. You can make relishes. Okay,
Yeah.
same methodology. Like a pepper relish. All this. I can do this, I can water bath it, I can can it and preserve it, and I have it later down the line.
And you
You
can
know,
sort of do the same preservation method with jams too, right?
absolutely. And jams are one of the greatest things in history because it's a preservation of food that allowed for the continuation of vitamin C.
Yeah,
Nobody wants scurvy. Horrible, horrible thing, right? And it's the lack of vitamin C.
I know.
So again, and again, historically in the winter, you are eating that jam as a source of vitamin C that you stored.
Because there's
You
none
know,
available in the winter, exactly.
you got it. And now in the Native American methodologies too, rose hips are a good example of this.
Yes.
Rose hips are incredibly high in vitamin C. In one rose hip, there's more vitamin C than 4 oranges.
I gotta caution
right?
people about rose
Again,
hips. Don't just
yeah.
put them in your mouth, folks.
Yeah, there's things you got to read up on before you do it. But I'm just saying, But back in pemmican, it was one of the traditional things you added to pemmican.
Yeah, you can
right?
process them. They're kind of like they're kind of like pomegranates, but think of it
yeah.
like
They're very seedy, and chunky.
microbic
Yeah.
fish bones stuck in your
Yeah.
throat.
But I mean, that was one of the things in pemmican where it made it like a superfood because it provided that vitamin C that you needed to
Yeah,
prevent scurvy and stuff, and vitamin C too. Again, everything we're eating is like has a biological function here that we need. So yeah, jams. That's a whole other ballgame, and a lot of that preservation method. You're talking about high sugar contents, also, be it natural sugars or additional sugars.
yeah.
Again, in the modern age, we're so used to sugar because of high rates of sugarcane production. But in a lot of places, and I do grow sugar beets also, which sugar beets is a great source. You can make your own sugar. Honey.
Have you made your own sugar?
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass, but yeah, it's like maple syrup, dude. I'm just like boiling
You're
shit
just
forever,
like, yeah, fuck it. I'm gonna go buy it. Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a point, but the point is, I know how to do it.
Yeah.
And that's the key. It's the skill. It's the skill.
It'd be fun to do once, right? That's what you're saying.
Well, no, I mean, or it could be like, hey, man, I got a bumper crop, dude. I got a whole weekend, and this is what I'm doing, dude. That kind of thing. It just depends.
You could probably sell it to a sucker that wants to try to make their own sugar.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Well, I
That's
mean,
what you should do, man.
Okay, so you brought it up the other day, like tapping trees. Like maples aren't the only one. You can literally make syrups from a large amount of trees. It just depends.
Yeah,
but
I've
like
heard of
things
birch.
like,
Yeah.
but you got to read up. Yeah, birch is one, and stuff like that. Hazel's another. But like things like oaks have too much tannin in it. Just don't even. I mean, there's like acorns. You can process acorns, remove the tannin, make acorn flour, or do other things. Like there's all these other things around us that we don't realize. Again, plantain, huge medical usage, totally edible. You got like dandelion, super plant.
Yeah.
Super plant. It wasn't native to North America until settlers brought it over
And
from
there's
France.
ways to preserve all of these things.
Yeah, and you can make booze out of it too. I mean, again, remember half the stuff we're talking about when you get into fermentation, steps in the process are actually making alcohols and things like that.
Yeah.
Again, wine was the way of preserving like fruits, like especially a grape. Right?
It's the way of preserving the spirit of the plant.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's why they call it spirits.
That's exactly it, right?
It goes back to alchemy. I mean, it's preservation of the spirit of the plant. Nothing else, though.
It's the same thing. You can run a still, right?
Yeah.
You can make your own alcohols. Alcohols have multiple uses, not just drinking. You can make alcohol alcohols that you can drink. You can literally make, like wood alcohols, which are poisonous.
You can make fuel.
Yeah, you can use it as a fuel source, things like that. You just got to read up and know what you're doing on it, But I mean, this is an acid base, things like that,
Yeah.
And and pickles, the two methodologies, again, they both can be reserved in a long term, right? But you get into like pressure canning, that's like stepping up your game, kind of,
Mm-hmm.
And I own a couple of pressure canners, even electronic ones, just program shit and call it done. But there's a lot of different methodologies. Like, okay, so that's acids, but then we're going to talk about egg glassing really quick.
Yeah,
okay?
I wanted to ask you about that.
This is a traditional way of preserving eggs. So I'm using quick lime. So I'm burning limestone. I'm producing this alkaline powder after the fact. Quick lime, you can buy like a 50-pound bag for dirt cheap. You'll never use that much. It's kind of crazy. Like I just, get some for my brothers. You can use it for gardening, a variety of things. So it's an alkaline. So when an egg comes out of the chicken, right? It's got this film layer on it. Now you're going to want to not wash the egg.
Hmm.
And eggs are weird too about like temperature things and what penetrates and what doesn't.
Well, if you
But
think about them, yeah, they are kind of weird.
yeah, you don't wash your eggs in cold water. You wash them in lukewarm water for a reason because it penetrates, right? So, but here's what this is the simplest freaking thing on the planet, dude. I'm going to take that egg. I'm not going to wash it. I'm just going to make sure it's, relatively clean. If you keep your roost in the nest clean, typically they'll be clean, and even a little something on it, don't worry about, knock it off. That film layer that's on there that I would normally wash off, I want to preserve. And how I'm doing that is using an alkaline process. I'm going to take fresh eggs. I'm going to put them in a big jar. I'm going to take those eggs and then I'm going to pour them a lime solution that I'm making. And there are percentages. A little goes a long way. Some people literally are just dumping cups of lime and it works too.
So you're changing the pH of the water by doing that, right?
Absolutely,
Okay.
100%. And I'm also chemically binding that lime to the surface. Okay.
Okay.
And so now, as long as I store that jar and like you would in the cellar or something like that,
And that
cool.
film helps with that binding?
Yeah, and you seal the jar on the lid, okay? And you're going to do all that, and you're going to keep it in that solution sitting down in there. And as long as you keep it, temperature stable, all the other things, and we're talking room temperature stable or colder here, and don't let it freeze, mind you, because
Right.
bad things will happen. I can take that egg out after 8 months, crack it open like a regular egg,
No way.
and cook it up. Absolutely, 100%.
Like a raw egg. It's not going to
raw
be
egg,
cooked?
like a raw egg. I have sealed that egg.
So we're not talking about pickled eggs here.
No, well, pickled eggs is another methodology where I'm going to hard boil an egg. I'm going to put it in a jar with a pickling solution of acid, and then I'm going to seal that puppy up and store it. And a lot of that too is about processing, ensure that everything's dead in there, and then the acid also will help, in the preservation process.
Right.
Like pickle eggs are easy to do, but that's a little different. Now, what I'm talking about with egg glassing is I'm preserving an egg as it's, just like a regular egg, so I can use it in whatever way.
I mean,
you can freeze eggs too. I mean, if you crack them, knock them off in a freezing trick, use ice trays for proportional stuff.
Oh, right. Things,
yeah. I mean, it's a good trick, but I can, take those eggs, mix them up, and I have like egg solution, and then I can freeze it.
That is a good trick,
way,
actually. I just want to highlight that trick in case that just kind of flew over everybody's head there. Ice cube trays are not just for ice, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You can, if you have a bumper crop of garlic or something like that, and you don't know what to do with it, grate it all up in a food processor and then scoop it into an ice cube tray, freeze it, pop those cubes into a Ziploc bag, and boom, you're good. It's fresh garlic that you grew in your garden, like perfect portion size for like whatever you want to do with it, like stir fries, spaghetti sauce, whatever you want.
Absolutely. Great for when making pestos too. You can make
all kinds of stuff. You just grind it all up and put it in an ice cube tray.
You know what? I'm going to backtrack just slightly here. Okay, so when you're dehydrating and doing stuff, for example, vegetables and mushrooms and things like that, you know what I do a lot? Yeah, I have jars of shiitake powder, right? I dehydrate the mushroom to the point where I can just throw it in a food processor. That's why I just remember that. And I can turn it into a powder.
Mm-hmm.
And then I actually have like your electric jar vacuum sealer. Right,
okay.
You slap over and you put the lid on. You slap over it and it evacuates it. I will throw in a desiccant packet doing this also, and an oxygen absorber. But I make powders a lot out of stuff, and why? Because they're awesome additions to soup, like shiitake powder.
Mm-hmm.
You want a trick for making an awesome, and you want that umami flavor in your meatloaf.
Yeah.
Add a couple tablespoons of that stuff into it.
You could also add it to your dry rubs, man. It's amazing.
Got it.
It's so good in the smoker too. It just absorbs more smoke. It's so good.
Well, when you're dehydrating, making powders is a great compact methodology of storage.
Exactly. It's like one of the most efficient ways to like not only cut down on storage size, but like if you're gonna, you could carry that. You can carry a powder. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
like,
if you get a good quality vacuum sealer, like I can vacuum seal proportions also, but I can do that with powders, like that also. I can make your little packet. Right.
Right.
I mean, it's the same thing. I can dehydrate all the stuff I want for, like, let's say your addition to a dried ramen mix. I can make a jar full of this stuff, or I can
Yeah.
make individual packets and pop that puppy open, throw them in there, and you can
You can make your own soup mix.
literally, yeah, you
Yeah,
can, but you can make it the way you want it, and you can make it healthy, and you can make it without all the extra chemicals,
exactly.
right? Because again, back to like the beginning of the show, man, read that label. Look at
Yeah.
all the crap in your food, dude. Do you really want to be eating that, or would you rather do it this way? And so it's one of those. And again, all this is the discussion today is about, if you're going to spend an hour doom scrolling, spend 5 minutes, spend the next 55 minutes learning something
Hmm.
and doing something, a constructive hobby, let's just call it that. Spend your time wisely, because time's the shortest
I
commodity we
love
got,
that
you know?
constructive hobby idea. I think that's
Yeah.
that's cool because
Well, I mean, it's,
what's
it's the truth.
constructive about
Yeah.
the hobby is that you get an actual benefit from it, like a
You know it. Yeah.
tangible benefit
Yeah.
from it. Like, oh my god, I just made 6 jars of jam, and if I just leave them here in my cupboard, they'll be here in like 5 years,
Man, you got
and
no
you can
idea.
still
Man,
eat it.
it is so crazy. Like all my friends and people I know and stuff like that. Like I give away a lot of stuff, man. I'm that kind of dude.
Oh,
I
that's
always
awesome though.
always have an overabundance. Like my pickles are renowned. I swear to God, I go to work and I get requests and I'm handing out a case of pickles. I
Oh,
do a
you're
lot of.
giving away your time right now with us in the
Well, you know
greenhouse,
what?
man. We love you, man. I mean,
Goodwill
this is
goes
awesome.
goodwill in the world goes a long way.
It sure
And
does.
same thing. I love pickled beets. Pickled beets have huge health benefits. Beets in general. So I do a lot of pickled beets and that kind of thing. And I do spicy ones, non-spicy ones. That kind of stuff. I mean, it's the same thing. You can pickle peaches. I always use my grandma's recipe and stuff like that for pickled peaches. It is, you can make them less sugary, more
I've
sugary.
never
It's
had
still
pickled peaches.
it's still vinegar. You can use vinegars to preserve fruits, and a
I
lot of
never
people
even
don't
thought of
realize
doing that.
that. Yeah, you can pickle fruits too. Basically, pretty much you can pickle anything, man. You can pickle meats, you can pickle all kinds of stuff. But it's about the acidity in a preservation process, as opposed to alkalinity and, like,
Right.
for example, egg glassing in a process of preservation. Same thing when the addition of like the nitrates and stuff like that. We're talking about adding an alkaline, like into your sausage to help preserve it. Hi, Siegfried. Siegfried's back again.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, he's checking in. All right. So, but I mean, we have the ability to do this at home with minimal amounts, and if you're thrifty and you go out to like garage sales, I'm going to say this up front about like any of the canning and stuff. Stick with stainless steel or an enamel pan,
Right.
like old school. Do not use aluminum. Do not use copper. I mean, those other things have places, like copper has a place in certain things, all that. You just got to remember that when you're playing with chemistry, you're also dealing with everything involved, including what you're using. There's some things like high acidities. If you put copper in it, you're leaching copper. Okay. And you don't necessarily want that, and same thing, pay attention to your spoon, wood spoons, things
Also, I
like
think
that.
we should throw out that the egg glassing, the water
Yeah.
glassing thing. Don't do that with your grocery store eggs. It won't work, right?
Mm-mm. No, it's all about the fresh egg and that layer that comes off on the egg
Right.
that they normally would wash off. And there's, it's the same thing when you grow stuff, like you cure things, right? Like your onions, when you grow them, there's a different taste between me pulling it out of the garden, using it, and then me letting it sit and dry. And that's
Exactly.
it's a curing process, and it also helps with the preservation in the long term
Isn't
by
that weird
curing
that
it.
nature
I know,
itself
right?
has a built-in preservation method?
Well, I mean, it's the same thing. Some seeds won't germinate unless they've been frozen, right?
Yeah,
You know, Nate,
vernalization, exactly.
everything adapted over time to certain conditions and things like that. Like the same thing with your potatoes. Don't go washing your potatoes and chuck them in a corner, because if I pull them straight out of the ground, I let them cure, dry out a little bit. Don't wash it. It will have a longer shelf life than the cured. Now, the stuff you get in the store is sprayed with an enzyme
Right.
that keeps it from wanting to sprout again or break down. And the same thing, if you store your onions and potatoes together, your onions will start sprouting and they'll degrade quickly because of an off gassing of the onions. So you always keep them
Right.
separate.
Hey,
Like if
speaking of alums, we've got about
Yeah.
just under 10 minutes left here.
Yeah, yeah,
I wanted
yeah.
you to briefly give people your not just recipe, but thoughts on the benefits of your honey fermented garlic.
Okay, so honey fermented garlic has huge benefits for your microbiome in your stomach. It's a little garlicky in flavor, and the way I made it, a little lemony in flavor, And the thing about it is, too, is besides the biome benefit, it also boosts your immune system.
Yeah.
So, like a teaspoon a day, if you just want to eat it that way, straight off a teaspoon, totally yummy.
How do you make it?
Okay, so I'm gonna take garlic. I'm gonna clean it up. I'm gonna take the paper off, do all the other stuff. I'm gonna just take that. I'm gonna put it in a jar.
You're gonna leave it whole though in the clove state?
I leave it whole,
Okay.
and then I'm gonna pour in garlic, or pour in the honey, and I'm going to add a little bit of vinegar. There's a proportional recipe for it to increase the amount of acidity in it, because the acidity is going to stop like the bad bacterium, like botulism, from growing. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it so that all the garlic is below the level. Now, I even made a version that has mullein in it. And which has its own medical benefits, and it's leaching out over time the liquids from the vinegar. It's leaching out, like in the mullein, all the beneficial chemicals in the mullein also. All right, which is totally edible anyways. You can just eat it like that.
It would be really cool if you could use honey that was made from bees that only feasted on mullein.
Yeah, that would be cool if you could do it.
Saying.
But I mean, I know, right? Well, I leave goldenrod for late season.
Oh yeah,
stuff too. Okay, so that's whole other gardening. That's a whole other show.
Whole other show.
So, but that honey fermented garlic is an ancient recipe. All right, this is like literally goes back like 1,000 years.
Yeah.
Okay, and it is super beneficial biologically to you. It boosts your immune system.
With flu season coming up, I mean,
you got it.
Yeah.
You know it. I mean, you can even put a little bit in your coffee if you want to drink it that way.
Oh, that would be
sweeten it
so
up,
good.
All the other stuff.
Your breath would fucking stink, but it'd be great.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm the kind of guy I'll chew on a raw piece of onion. I don't mind.
I'm the kind of guy I just don't talk to people unless it's through a microphone.
Well, if you want to be antisocial and be deterrent, it works that way.
Yeah, it's for health benefits, man.
So, yeah, exactly, right. But I mean, it's one of those easy, simple things to do. Now, I have a fermentation kit where I'm using jars. I believe I've posted pictures before of it.
Yeah.
Jars that have a water trap on top. It just solves a lot of problems, because typically I'm going to turn it, every, couple days.
Okay.
I'm going to burp it. I'm going to open it up, and stuff like the water trap just solves that problem altogether. I don't even have to do it.
You don't have to do anything. It just sits
I will
there.
still jiggle it because I'm producing gases that are going to off gas.
Right.
And I want to get the gases out of it so they're not sitting against the garlic and things like that, But like, remember, honey too is like an antibiotic. Right, I can use this. It will thin out because it's extracting the liquids and stuff out of the garlic and some of the beneficial stuff out of the garlic. But I can still use that. Like if I get a scratch, I can put it on it, and that scratch is going to be an antibiotic solution.
Right.
Honey is one of the greatest antibiotics ever. It is an eternal food.
I mean, we could do a whole show on bees. Don't you keep bees?
I have a cousin that is the dude who is in charge of all the bees.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Working for the FDA and stuff like that. I have a gazillion buddies that run bees. I don't run bees myself. I don't need to.
I think Rich is trying to do bees or something.
Yeah, Rich is running
in the
bees.
Discord. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, dude, okay. We got 3 minutes. What I want to do is just, first of all, thank you for coming back and coming
anytime.
on. And
anytime.
Zoe says hello to
Siegfried.
to Siegfried.
Yeah, he wandered off again. I don't know where
and they keep missing each other.
It is. Yeah.
But I would love to have you back on to talk about some other things. I mean, there's so many things that we could talk about. We just have a ton of similar interests.
Well, we should totally talk about, like, Malcolm Bendel's work, some of the newer innovations, like the Helion.
The thunderstorm generator, maybe?
Yeah, the thunderstorm, that's Malcolm Bendel.
Yeah.
But then, Antiquitech, like atmospheric electrical generation, we can talk about. There's a gazillion things,
yeah,
too,
man.
Seriously,
So, dude,
all kinds of stuff.
Thank you so much for coming on, man. And for everybody out there listening, tomorrow I think we're going to go back to 1996 because I got some spare parts from my buddy Mike here that he fabricated them. which was handy because it was getting close. So I'm going to be doing that tomorrow. It's groundzeroplus.com. It's the Polynation broadcast. And this has been Mike Mont in the greenhouse. I'm going to leave you with half a song because I don't even have time for a whole one. It's Sun Rain by LTJ, Bucum, and Elliot. Polynation broadcast. See you tomorrow, folks.